Raising Cane's is celebrating 25 years. That means 25 years of serving over 2.5 billion cook-to-order chicken finger meals. And 25 years of saying drive-thru rhymes. Lots and lots of times. Oh, and 25 years of the same mascot. Okay, different mascots with the same name. And 25 years of serving our communities. Thanks for making us your chicken fix since way back in '96. Raising Cane's, 25 years, one love.
Here we start that feed. And hi, Sandra. Hi, Sandra. Hi, Sandra. Christopher Morales, thank you for joining us. Pam McSee, looking lovely tonight. DB Queen, how are you? Thanks for coming on in. Joshua, nice to see you. Smoky Mountain Wanderer, nice to have you here. Travis DeLuca, good to see you. Joshua, thank you so much for kicking off the Super Chat tonight. Really do appreciate that. The lovely Pam C is here as well. So thank you so much, Joshua. And Pam, good to see you. As we continue on, Third Eye Sour, welcome to our welcome to our chat room for the first time. Eris Mana, welcome to our chat room. Thank you. We're going to get going here in about 20 seconds. If you're new here, and I'll say hello to everybody else here momentarily, but if you're new to our room, this is a live radio show. We will be taking commercial breaks at every half an hour for a few minutes, but you guys get to hear behind the scenes. As Super Chat is a great way to support what we do here on a nightly basis. And, of course, hit that subscribe button, ring that bell. We are literally here 7 days a week at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern for your entertainment. Here we go, everyone. Get your horns up. From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on TalkStream Live, Revolution Radio, and KPNL. All of our archives are free by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. You can follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. Gather round, gather round. The Swamp Dweller has a tale to share with you. Robbie Antia is the creator of the Creepypasta YouTube channel, Swamp Dweller. Swamp Dweller is a channel telling stories submitted by their over 250,000 subscribers and audience members of some of the creepiest and scariest encounters with cryptid creatures from around the world. I don't know how he does it. I don't know where he gets these stories, but I can tell you this. I am a major fan personally. I'm actually fangirling a little bit tonight because I go to bed every night after this show, and the first channel I go to is Swamp Dweller because I want to be freaked out before I go to bed, talking Wendigos, talking anything from ghosts to alien encounters, Bigfoot, Dogman, Skinwalkers. You want it? He has it. And we are so proud to have Swamp Dweller here. He doesn't do a lot of interviews, but we're so glad to have the Swamp Dweller, Robbie Antia, here on Spaced Out Radio tonight. Rob, thank you so much for taking the time to join us. I know you doing interviews is very rare, so we're very proud that you chose us to come on the air with.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you so much for having me on. This is an honor.
I got to ask you, your channel is 250,000 subscribers on YouTube. You do a lot with your website. You're becoming ever more popular each and every day. I check your channel, and trust me, dude, I am stalking it because I'm such a fan. But I want to ask you, for you, when you look at the overall experiences people are having, did you ever think, going back 10, 15 years, that this would be something that you would be doing as a full-time job?
Honestly, no, never. I did not. Honestly, 10, 15 years ago, I didn't know what YouTube was, but I've always been very much obsessed with the radio. and would just listen to the AM, FM all the time. I grew up in the middle of nowhere. We didn't have internet and all that until I was like 15, so I just always knew I wanted to do something in the broadcasting field, that's for sure.
So for you, how did you come up with the idea of Swamp Dweller? Like, how did this come about?
It's honestly just a really random story. So I guess I'll try to condense it. It's kind of
we got lots of time. Tell the long version.
All right. Well, basically, music was like my first real passion in life. I was in like metal bands, and we played shows and toured all over the East Coast of the United States and stuff all the time. And I did that until I was about like 19. And as a lot of people learn, you don't really make a lot of music and gigging and stuff like that. Or, you don't make a lot of money in music gigging and such. And so one day I had to make the decision to go work a normal job, be a normal person, and have a hobby on the side to keep myself happy. So I started a podcast after I had a really strange experience one night coming home from work at about probably 2 a.m. I was driving down this road. It's actually the same road that Jeepers Creepers was filmed on in Denellen, Florida. It's this long road that's probably about 10 miles, 15, well, I guess it's not long. It's like 10, 15 miles. It goes like cuts through one part of the town to the other. And it's just nothing but cow fields on both sides. And it's always very foggy on this particular road for some reason. And I was driving this tiny little 2001 Honda Civic, super low to the ground, just making my way home. And I just remember there's this big mass in front of my car, probably about 500 feet away, and my car's so low that this thing looks like it's hulking over it, and I'm like, what the heck? So I begin to slow down, I turn my high beams on, and from what it looks like there's like some sort of dead bear or something in the road. It's like this big mass of like brown, reddish fur. It's kind of a hard mix of colors to explain. And as I inched up closer and, like I said, flicked my high beams on, I noticed the eye shine of the thing. And this thing just stands up, and what I notice first is that this thing just has like these really like piercing kind of crimson eyes. Really? And it's almost like, I don't want to say like blood color, but like a dark red. Like it's a color that I'll never forget. And I just remember freaking out for a second, 'cause I'm like, what the hell, this thing is tall, because this thing was hulking over my car. And but it's like the craziest thing, because all this thing did was just turn and literally run off into the cow field. I've never seen anything run like this. It almost reminded me of like somebody who's bow-legged. You know, if you've ever seen somebody who's bow-legged run and such. And it like cleared like the barbed wire fence is probably about 4 or 5 feet tall. Like it was nothing, and it was just like kind of blended into the darkness because there's no lights out there in the fog. And for a while, probably for like 2-3 weeks, I just thought I was really tired, hallucinating. You know, who knows? You know, it's been a tough time in my life at that point. And I find this show called Dogman Encounters, and I'm listening to it, and it's hosted by a gentleman named Vic Cundiff. And I get in touch with him, and I explain to him what I saw, and he invites me on his show. And then after that, he starts talking to me on a regular basis and tells me that he thinks that I have a good perspective and understanding of what I saw, and that maybe I should try to start some sort of podcast of my own. So I started a podcast called Swamp Dog Chronicles, because from where I'm from, Seminole Creek Legends, they have something they call the Swamp Dog, which is similar to like a dogman, werewolf type creature. And so I based it off that and interviewed people who were on Monster Quest and people, you know, who allegedly were like researchers and such like that. And I did that for about 30 episodes and kind of got bored. And one day a narrator who was one of kind of like the original narrators of this whole like creepypasta thing told me that, I think you have a good voice, you should try to do stories. And I had all these Dogman encounters and like Skinwalkers encounters that were sent to me from people who wanted to tell me their story but didn't want to come on the show. So I was like, well, maybe I'll narrate these and see what happens. And that's essentially how it all worked out. Was I started doing that. That was probably the beginning of 2017, and ever since then it's just kind of grown and become more diverse. I've started off with, you know, just like Dogman and ghosts and stuff like that, and we've gone into all kinds of things, cryptid documentaries, true crime documentaries, you know, just scary stories all across the board. And as I mentioned earlier, about like 95% of the stories probably, I would say, come from viewers that watch the show and submit through the website and such. and it's been a very tumultuous and interesting 5 years.
That creature that you saw, do you think it was a Bigfoot? Do you think it was a bear that just was taking off over and running on two legs because you kind of startled it? What do you think that was?
I think about it all the time, and that encounter reminded me of one from when I was even younger, which I can share later if you'd like to hear. But what this thing looked like to me was almost more like a hyena. Like I didn't get to see like a good picture of it because this happened super fast. Like I tried to like slow it down and explain it, but like this happened probably in like 15, 20 seconds max. Like I'm pulling up, this thing stands up, runs off, and it's like, oh crap. And then I obviously floor it down the road freaking out like, did I just see Jeepers Creepers? Like what the hell? But I kind of think it was closer to some sort of dogman creature. It could be a Bigfoot. I'm not sure. Maybe a skunk ape. But all the descriptions and things that people have sent over the years to me, it makes more sense that it was maybe some sort of dogman type thing.
Is that the persistence that you have in this field, dealing not only with creepypasta, but all of these strange stories that you've collected over the years, is to maybe one day find out what it is you saw?
I guess yes and no. I've kind of resigned myself years ago to like when I made this whole show and all that, I never wanted to be the guy that was trying to like convince people that, you know, Bigfoot is real or cryptids are real or the paranormal is real. I never wanted to be that guy. I'm not here to push an argument or to, I guess, necessarily push a narrative. I've always wanted to be the person who's just trying to ask questions and figure out what is actually happening. So ultimately, like, I don't think I'll ever have answers for what I saw that night. It could be anything. It could be a cryptid. It could be something that was from, you know, stress and being tired, or it could be something paranormal. Who knows? But I've kind of resigned myself to like not worrying about trying to figure out what these things were, but more trying to understand what these things are.
The experiences that people are tuning into you, okay, and I was blown away when we were talking before the show. I was blown away that literally you have thousands upon thousands of these stories to go through that people have sent to you over the years, and you're only pretty much a one-man operation doing all of this. I mean, how do you keep account for stories that are real and stories that are just so out there that you're like, there is no way this could be real? Or do you just throw them in one basket and just say, look, this is what we're doing, this is how we have built this, it's up to the audience to decide?
It's evolved over the years, but for the past probably like 3 years, I'd say now, everything is pretty clearly like marked and separated on my channel. But like basically like the main show, it's just allegedly true. I always say that every video. It's allegedly true. This is claimed to be true by the people submitting them. Some of the stories are more outlandish than others. I do a degree of quality control, of course. Obviously, if it's something that's so ridiculous that, you know, it would just make the show look, you know, bad, I probably will pass that one up. But for the most part, I try to give everybody the benefit of the doubt. And at the end of the day, you know, it's alleged. Nobody can really prove any of these things. It's not like I can, you know, give you physical proof, tangible proof that, you know, this guy saw a UFO or something. But, you know, that's what they're claiming, and that's the validity of what it is. And at the end of the day, as I always say, it's just entertainment. You know, I'm not out here trying to, you know, push that like this is all real, but I believe that there is a grain of truth to just about every story out there. All folklore comes from somewhere, you know. So I don't try to mix them, you know, on purpose. Like I'm not somebody that's gonna put like a creepypasta and then title it true or something. I'm gonna clearly title it that like, hey, this is a fictional story. This was written by myself or somebody else. This is based on true events. Like I make it pretty clear.
Yeah, and I can see that. And I'm going to tell you, what made me a fan of your channel was just the honesty and the way you read these stories. You were trying to read them from a first-person account, and the detail that a lot of these people go into with what they have seen and what they have experienced themselves. I mean, do you yourself still get creeped out by some of these?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I'm not somebody who spooks easily. I'm just like you. I'm literally somebody who falls asleep to, like, you know, murder documentaries and stuff like that. But a good ghost story, sometimes it just depends, you know, especially when it's something that's, relevant to myself that I've experienced, especially like a good ghost story. It'll give me goosebumps, make the hair in the neck, you know, stand in the back of my neck. And I've noticed definitely over the years, like if I'm on a day where I'm like just recording a ton of episodes in a day, just getting stuff ahead, if I'm going to be out of town for a week or something, I notice that like towards the end of the day after I've read like 30, 40 stories, I'm starting to get freaked out by the littlest of things. Like there'll be like a bump on the other side of the house and I'll be like, oh crap, somebody's breaking in. Like, so sometimes, yeah, I get a little paranoid, but not too often.
Do you have a favorite topic? I can tell you mine. The ones that screw me up the most are the park ranger stories that you do. Those ones, I don't know what it is about them, but they scare the daylights out of me.
I love the park ranger ones. Honestly, the park ranger one was just something that like I felt like nobody was doing all these years ago, and I was like, I've never really seen somebody be like, go out there and talk to park rangers and such like that. And I actually worked as a park ranger for a short time at a local state park when I was a teenager. So I always heard like interesting stories from, the older people that would work there, and they would always tell me crazy stuff. It didn't have to be like Bigfoot stories, but it could be just like, oh, I saw an alligator attack somebody once or something crazy like that. And it's just like, I was like, this would make for a great series, thinking back on that. And it really does, because there's a lot of weird stuff that happens out in the woods, whether it can be explained by natural things or just something paranormal. There's a lot of weird stuff going on in those trees.
So for you, what about the creatures? You deal with everything from skinwalkers to wendigos. That one just blows me away, by the way. To little people, to gnomes, to anything weird and strange. Do you have a favorite topic that you love to talk about?
Favorite topic creature-wise, I'd probably say, man, that's hard. Either a raven mocker or a wishuge. Those are really, really creepy cryptids that just, people are scared of skinwalkers and wendigos. I'm like, you need to look at Wendigo's cousin on the other side of Canada, the wishuge. He's a little more scary. And topic-wise in general, I would just say I just love the outdoors. Kind of what I've based my whole brand on at this point is just like the nature outdoors. I've always had like an affinity with just mountains and national parks and state parks and just preserving stuff and stuff. So I just love the outdoor stories. There's, like I said, nature is just endless. Anything can happen out there.
As your channel has grown, do you get a lot of different like park rangers or police officers or military people now kind of reaching out to you behind the scenes via email or social media saying, hey, I'd like to talk. I got this story that's happened and I don't know where to turn. Do you get a lot of that now?
Yeah, I would say I got it more back in the day, but I get it all. Oh, my dog's barking. I get it all the time. And the most interesting ones are actually like not necessarily like military or like police, but it's like first responders in the sense like search and rescue people, EMTs, stuff like that. Like especially EMTs, I'd say like I've had a gentleman who's reached out to me and sent me many stories about what he believes to some sort of spirit that's attached to him from one of the times he went to one of the jobs where somebody was hit by a car. And he's been sending me this series of letters over the past couple of months of the torments that's happened and all that kind of stuff, and how it's kind of worsened his PTSD and such like that. And it's there's just lots of interesting things like that. You really meet a lot of really cool people, but at the same time, tragic stories that come with it.
Are there any topics for your followers that you will not touch? Like any topics that are just a no-go zone?
I would guess I would never say never on any topic, but for the most part, you'll probably never see like the typical like narration trendy topics. Like you're not gonna see like let's not meet stories on my channel or something like that. You're probably not gonna see like Instagram stories or fast food stories, like anything like that. But anything natural is kind of what you're gonna see more on my channel.
Yeah. So as you're editing these stories, though, like for instance, I think you always have to have a modicum of focus on what you're doing on your channel, and I'm sure you do too. I mean, you try and keep the reins as loose as possible. But like for me here, we don't talk politics, we don't talk COVID as much as we possibly can, because our listeners are coming in on a nightly basis to try and get away from that, because they've been hammered by it all day long from the time they wake up to the time that they tune us in. So for you, is there any type of true crime or anything that just kind of, makes your stomach turn and you're like, yeah, we're never going there?
Well, yeah, I guess politics are definitely something I keep out. Controversial stuff, I try my best to keep out of the content as well. It is really a place for people to come and relax and unwind. I guess the only other real thing I keep out of there is just like stuff that involves like crime-wise, just like assaults, stuff on children, things like that. Just like that's the only thing I really kind of dance around when it comes to that. But for the most part, I keep all my stuff clean and to the point. I don't do anything that's like over the top. I don't try to make anything more than it is. I guess I kind of just present it for what it is, and hopefully that speaks for itself.
Now, you're somebody who is very rare in this field where you actually, have been able to carve out a career through this niche type of broadcasting. And congratulations for you on that, because, not a lot of people, including myself, have had that ability to do that yet. When you look at overall, the big picture now is you look back, since when you started to where you are now, what have you learned about yourself, not only as a broadcaster, but as an entertainer?
I would say I learned a lot more just about who I am as a person. I'd say I learned that I have a lot of resolve, and I have a lot of perseverance. I mean, 5 years going, never missing an upload nearly every day, I think is something that is tough for anybody to do. And I'd say I've learned, honestly, just so much that I don't even know where I would start. It's just I'm a completely different person, I would say, for sure. Smarter, wiser, more caring, more empathetic. And it's all because of the people that I've met along the way, other creators, the viewers of the show, and amazing people like you who I've met along the way that I get to come on platforms like this and just get to learn and grow every single day. And I guess that's my biggest thing that I've learned over the years since I began is just to try to grow, learn something new every day, and just be completely open and try not to be biased.
So for you, but you also have a sign of anonymity to you. People recognize your voice, but you're not somebody broadcasting your picture like my ugly mug on YouTube, where I know I have a face for radio.
In South Dakota, we're looking forward to exploring new roads and wide open spaces. When you're ready to travel, go great places. Learn more at travelsouthdakota.com.
Expand your influence by adding high-quality music to your videos. Premium Beat tracks are produced by award-winning musicians at world-class studios. Plus, our license gives you tracks for a lifetime. Pay once and never again. Save 25% on your next track at premiumbeat.com/royalty-free/podcast.
And sometimes a voice for print. You're somebody who has a little bit of anonymity to yourself. Do you like that type of being able to just kind of be on the side? This is what I do. This is my job, but I'm able to separate my personal life from what I do in my public life.
Yeah, I actually, I've never been somebody who wants to be, like, walking outside and it's like, oh my god, that swamp dweller, that's my worst fear. Like, if I ever walk out and that happens to me, I'm probably going to have to move. But, honestly, like, I guess I've never necessarily hid my face. Like, if you go on Instagram stuff, like, there's pictures of me out there and stuff, and I've been on stream before. It's just, I'm more of I'd rather let the content shine and do what it is, and I'm not really trying to be necessarily the star of the show or anything. As much as I guess technically I am, but like for me, it's just more of the content is what matters. The stories, purveying them in as authentic and as first person of an account as I can to do justice to the people's encounters and such. And yeah, that's really it. Just doing the job, I'm not really out there looking for the accolades or the pats on the back or anything. I'm more just just trying to move forward and try to make any difference I can.
We got 90 seconds before we're going to go to break here at the bottom of the hour, and we have Swamp Dweller, a.k.a. Rob and Tia, joining us tonight on Spaced Out Radio. I want to know, for our people who may be asking, how'd you come up with the name Swamp Dweller?
Honestly, I lived in a swamp growing up, and that's honestly all it is.
Nice and easy.
Oh, yeah, short and sweet.
Yeah, well, when we come back from the break, my friend, I want to get into some of your creepier stories and get into some of these cast of characters of monsters and legends that are out there that people are reporting to you, because, you know, you give these beautiful stories and these beautiful narrations of the stories that people send to you, but I don't really know if a lot of people know you actually have an opinion on some of these, on whether or not they're real, what they really are, what we're dealing with on a daily basis, and I think a lot of people are going to be excited to hear your opinion.
Oh, yeah, well, I'm glad to give it.
Well, let's do that, my friend. And we're so glad to have Swamp Dweller Rob Antia here on Spaced Out Radio. He's got a very large YouTube channel called Swamp Dweller, which we highly suggest that anybody listening to this on terrestrial radio or on our podcast side goes and hits that subscribe button on Rob's channel, because Swamp Dweller literally is one of the best. If you like to be creeped out and you're trying to figure out, where can I hear some freaky stories? Creepypasta stories. Swamp Dweller. It's the best channel out there when it comes to Creepypasta. When we come back, let's get Rob's take on Wendigos, Skinwalkers, and some of the other creatures. Does he actually believe these stories and in these monsters? We'll find out when we return on the mighty SOR. Great start, buddy. Great start. Thank you so much.
Awesome. I'm glad it's going well.
Remember, our YouTube channel, our YouTube audience still can hear us.
Awesome. Sorry about my dog barking, by the way.
Oh, that's all right. You wouldn't believe how much we get dogs all the time. I'm okay with that. I'm not one of these guys who's like, get that dog, shut him up. No, not like that at all. It's kind of cool. My dog's in the studio with me right here.
Oh, mine normally is, but he's hanging out with my girlfriend and her friend, and I guess he decided to make himself known.
Ah, that's all right. My guy here, every now and again I look at him. He hasn't done it for a while. Then all of a sudden this week he's like, yeah, I guess my holiday's over. I'm coming back to work, Dad. And I'm like, okay, let's do it.
All right.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what caused him. He's now passed out on the floor down there, you know, so that's all right.
Nice, working hard.
Oh, of course. Yeah, he makes sure that none of the monsters come in here. And I think he's so laid back that I think if a monster actually did crawl through my window and attack me, he'd kind of look up. Oh, okay. I'm not dealing with this. I'm going back to bed.
Oh, my dog would probably just run away barking at him.
Thank you, Cat Chaser, for that awesome super chat. Really appreciate it. And thank you, Tewaz, Dirty Filth, and Joshua for the super chats as well. It's a great way to support this show. And, yeah, I'm just going to give a quick rundown because we've got a bunch of new people in here, if you don't mind. Hi, lovely Laura Tarnowski and Ed Parnell. Good to see you. Thanks for coming on in. And Logan, Magic Maiden, looking good tonight. Thank you for joining us. And the Akinator, nice to have you back, man. Where you been hiding? And I'm Chad Smith, by the way. Chad Smith is not the real Chad Smith. Gorgeous Kira, how you doing? Good to see you. And we've got a number of your followers in here, too, tonight. So, Yancey Scott, welcome to Spaced Out Radio. Davey, Michael Franks, welcome to Spaced Out Radio's chat room. Thank you for joining us. So, got a bunch of people in here for you here who support your channel. So, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, good to see you. Awesome.
Yeah.
See some recognizable faces as well.
Excellent. Excellent. Robert Dixon, good to see you. When you look at... no, I'm not going to ask you any questions right now because then I ruin it for the radio side of everything. And I sometimes do that, and I don't like when I do that. All right, big question for you. Probably the hardest question for you tonight. We'll ask you two of them. We ask every new guest on the show about this. What's your opinion of eating breakfast foods for dinner?
It's would be a crime not to, I'd say.
So you're from Florida. You don't understand that stuff. You don't understand that stuff. Oh, it's terrible. Terrible.
Yeah, I'm a savage. I'm just a savage.
You are a savage. Doing things like eating breakfast foods for dinner. Jesus. Like right there. TD, welcome to our channel. Thank you for joining us. And, okay, let's see if you can go at least 1 for 2 here. Desert, what the hell am I thinking? Devil's Tower in Wyoming, where they filmed Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Are you on Team Stump or are you on Team Rock?
Honestly, I'm going to be honest, I've never heard of this one, so I'm just going to give my best guess. I'm going to go with The Rock.
Man.
Damn.
Man. I thought we had it here, man. I thought we had it.
Oh my gosh, I should have went with the stump.
That's all right. That's all right. We'll forgive you this time. You're a rookie. You're a rookie of the show, so that's okay. What do we got going here? We got about just over 1 minute, 1 minute, 10 seconds here. Thank you to everybody new who is tuning on in tonight. This may be your first time listening to Spaced Out Radio. We want you to know that this is an actual live radio show, so we do have to have these commercial breaks at the bottom and top of the hour where we got to time everything out with our radio affiliates. And so if you're wondering why this sounds a little bit different, that's the reason why. So I hope you don't mind. It is a little bit different what we do, but, you'll get used to us if you give us a second chance. That'll be cool. That'll be cool. So anyways, we got about 36 seconds. Once again, if you don't mind, if you're brand new, hit that subscribe button, ring that bell, and let everybody know that you are a new subscriber of Spaced Out Radio. We really do appreciate it. Thank you to all the veterans out there listening to this show and all of our other shows. We absolutely love you. You always have a safe home with us here on the mighty SOR, and to all of our regulars out here, and we appreciate you, even you, Chad Smith, even you. Hey, Knucker, how you doing? Here we go. Second half hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us on this wild, wild night. I want to remind you that if you missed portions of this show or others, you can check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show. We have one of the most popular Creepypasta hosts on YouTube with us tonight. Swamp Dweller is here. Rob Antia, the creator of the Swamp Dweller channel. Over 231,000 subscribers on his channel, where he tells all of these amazing stories of weird, strange encounters that people are having. And I'll tell you, if you want to stay, try and fall asleep to some serious, weird stuff at night, do what I do. Listen to Swamp Dweller. Rob, welcome back to the show.
Thank you for having me on again. I'm very happy to be here.
Glad you were here as well. I got to ask you, right before the break, we talked about, some of your favorite stories. We talked about park ranger stories a little bit. I want to get into the Wendigo here, because this is another one that really creeps me out. And you seem to get a lot of Wendigo stories. For the people who may not know what the Wendigo is, could you explain this creature?
Well, the Wendigo is from Algonquin lore. It's going to be, up there in the good old Canadian area. Basically, a Wendigo is a spirit. It's a cannibalistic spirit that looks to possess human beings to become what is then known as a Wendigo. Essentially, the story goes is this in the midst of winter. Everybody was stuck in and they can't hunt. The blizzards are going. It's very nasty weather, and nobody can get food, and they're starving. This spirit will find the weakest link in the family, often the father or someone like that, and possess them to drive them mad to insatiable and quenching hunger for human flesh, which they will then mutilate, eat their family, and then eat off their lips and their fingertips, such like that, go running out through the village or the settlement or wherever this may be, and attempt to eat and kill everyone else. And the only real way to kill a Wendigo, according to the lore, is to, I believe, melt its heart.
Now, this creature has been seen in other areas as well, like from everywhere from deep, dark forests to local, parks where people are, maybe going for a jog or a quick hike behind their home. I mean, this is just a freaky sensation with, people saying that their skin is oozing off their bodies. It's got antlers like a deer. I mean, how often are you hearing about these encounters?
Honestly, I'd probably say 2 out of every 5 stories sent are some sort of cryptid encounter, whether it be these Wendigos or these skinwalkers or, something similar. As, in my opinion, I think a lot of these Wendigo encounters, skinwalker encounters are misidentifications for different types of creatures that are similar. But all the time, very, very frequently.
Now, the stories that people are telling you, is there 1 or 2 that stick out to you that you could share with our audience?
One that always sticks out to me off the top of my head is one of the classic Skinwalker stories on my channel. One of the first ones I think that really kind of gave the channel the name that it has currently is one called The Real... We call it Find the Real Cindy. And it's a story of this guy and his girlfriend who go on a road trip, and they stop at a motel that's kind of in the middle of nowhere, Arizona, not too far away from a reservation. And they go out to this bar, they're having a good time, but they start having some issues with some weird people at the bar. And as they're leaving, the creepy guy that they're having an issue with says something along the lines of cursing them or getting them or something along like that. They go back to their hotel, but before they leave, when they're in the car, his girlfriend notices that her ID or her card, something like that, is missing and it's back in the bar. So she goes back in. When she comes back out, it takes some time. She looks weird. She looks a little bit disheveled. She doesn't look necessarily normal, but she's kind of talking like she's okay. And they go back to the hotel, and everything is fine until they shower, all that. She doesn't shower, but he does. When he goes to shower, apparently she leaves to get something from the car and never comes back. He goes out to look for her, and he sees what he looks like his girlfriend running down this ravine. So he goes to follow her, and when he does go through the bushes to follow her, he sees just a mess of blood, clothes, all kinds of stuff, and then he sees what he thought was his girlfriend again, but it's just completely wrong now. It looks like her, but she's like distorted. Her voice sounds weird. It's just completely wrong, and that's basically the entire story there. Basically, it runs to, how these stories end normally. I ran away and I got away, but
it's anticlimactic in a way. No offense.
It always sucks, yeah. But yeah, that's like the first one that always sticks out to my head. It's just like we got to find the real Cindy. What happened to her?
I've told this story on the air, and I'm very curious to get your opinion because, about a year ago, 6 months ago, I was listening to one of your shows, and it was talking about how these creatures were mimicking experiencers and the people that they know. So, for instance, if I'm in the forest, all of a sudden I hear my mother in the forest, or my sister, or my child, or whatever it may be. My buddy Mike, and I know I think he's still listening. He's in the chat room tonight earlier. And my buddy Mike is a hunter, and here he was about a year ago, and he goes into this gravel pit, and he's looking for grouse, he's looking for rabbits to hunt, and as he's standing in the forest, by the forest area of the gravel pit, he starts hearing my voice yelling, "Help me! Come on in! Come on over here! Help me! Help me!" And to this day, it freaks him out. I was 25 minutes away in town working at my daytime job. And when I hear this story, it absolutely freaks me out. And it never really clued into me about it until I hear one of your stories on Swamp Dweller talking about Wendigos and skinwalkers mimicking people from their, voices that they know. I mean, to me, that is the ultimate scary stuff, man, when you hear that. Totally hear that.
It's a different kind of fear, in my opinion, because it's not just the fear of, oh my God, I'm scared. It's also that feeling of being deceived and feeling like you were, because like you're in that sense of safety for a second. Because for me, I've heard voices, but it's never been out in the woods or anything. But like I'll be like home sometimes, and every once in a while, it'll sound like my mom who lives far, far from me, or some female voice every so often. I'll hear it sounds like it's calling my name. And there's nobody here, and it's like the strangest thing. And I've never had that happen like while in trails, but to me, it's just like also just like the feeling of feeling like, oh, this is a familiar voice, or this is somebody that I know and I should be able to trust, and suddenly it's just a monster. It's going to eat my face.
Always comes down to a monster wanting to eat your face, man. Definitely. You know, the big thing is, I talked to one of our First Nations elders around here about it. And I was asking him, because thanks to you, I had to ask him, do we have skinwalkers or wendigos around here? But what I also learned is the folklorish creature called the Little People up here with the First Nations, they are also known to mimic and try and lure people into the forest as well. And there is a theory that maybe they take people into a different timeline, or maybe they butcher them, or whatever it may be. They don't really know, but they have caused people to go missing. Have you ever done any stories on the Little People First Nations deal with?
Yes, there's actually tons of different types of little people, depending on where you are, especially in North America, especially in, First Nations up in Canada, and especially down here in the United States. I've done a documentary in depth on one type of little people known as the Duende down in the Southern American area. And I've also read tons of stories about pugwagees and little people, and I've done an interview with a gentleman who had a really interesting encounter with what he believes to be a little person on near a burial ground of one of the native chiefs around there. So yeah, I've done a little bit about that, but it's not too common that I'll get stories about little people.
So for you, when you get a topic that you haven't heard of, or a creature that you haven't heard of, are you still caught off guard by them to see, well, this doesn't sound real, or this sounds way too fantastical?
Sometimes, yeah. There's definitely descriptions that I've been given sometimes, and it kind of like I have to pause the recording for a second and be like, what the hell did I just read? Like, it's like, what the heck is this thing supposed to be? But yeah, there are some very interesting ones. And I'd say the ones that take me back the most are probably the ones that just seem like they make sense. Like that could be real. It's like, what the heck? Like, I feel like that would definitely be a thing. Like I said, like the relevance to some of these stories to my own experiences. When I was 10 years old, I was up in Connecticut visiting my stepmother's family, and I was with a friend, and his backyard has this incline that goes up. And we were building a fort, and for some reason, we thought it would be a good idea to pee around this fort, because we were like, yes, that's how you mark your territory. But not knowing that attracts predators. This day, I remember my friend was clearing these leaves on the floor, and then I'm just looking the opposite way. He freezes, completely quiet because he was talking, and then I look back, and I notice he's staring at something. I look up, and we see what looks like a Great Dane standing on its hind legs, but like kind of yoked or buff, but also like emaciated looking at the same time, peeking out from behind a tree. And it's stuff like that makes complete sense, because that could just be a dog, but at the same time, it could be something completely different. So like stories that are like that, like you have some sort of relevance to that you can feel. Are most important.
That human aspect of it.
Yeah, I would say those are the ones that take me aback, because it's like, oh wow, like that actually seems like this is legitimate.
What do you think of black-eyed children's stories? Do you get a lot of black-eyed kids?
Honestly, there was like a fad at one point when I first started, like heavily, that like I was getting all these black-eyed kid stories, like these black-eyed people in general, like, but honestly, I'd probably say in the past, like, couple of years, I haven't been sent a single one.
Really? Do you think that... Okay, that brings up a good question here, because, nobody ever asks your opinion of whether or not you actually believe in these creatures. So do you believe in something like the Black-Eyed Kids?
I think it's potentially possible, I'm just not entirely.
With MailChimp, you get more than a URL. You get an all-in-one marketing platform to help drive sales. With things like data-driven recommendations and powerful automation tools. Get started today at MailChimp.com/smartmarketing. MailChimp, built for growing businesses.
Expand your influence with the perfect music to play on any social video. With Premium Beat, you get tracks produced by award-winning musicians working in world-class studios, so all your videos sound professional. Best of all, unlike other music providers, our license gives you tracks for a lifetime. Pay once and never again. Save 25% on your next track. Just visit premiumbeat.com/royalty-free/podcast to redeem your coupon. That's premiumbeat.com/royalty-free/podcast.
Really sure what they would or could be. It can make sense, like a lot of the stories, like some sort of vehicle, some sort of van with two strange adults sitting inside, and then these kids go up to the door. Like, it sounds like it could completely be some sort of real phenomenon. Now, where the black eyes come from and where the strangeness and all these other crazy details come from, that's where it kind of gets muddied. But I think it's completely plausible. I just don't know exactly what umbrella they would fall under.
What other of these creatures that you look at and you talk about on Swamp Dweller do you literally, away from the microphone say, there's no way this is real? Which ones do you question?
Honestly, to be honest, I'd probably say the most ones I question are probably Skinwalker ones, just because like they're all like kind of like the same in a sense, like they're kind of cookie cuttered. But I'm kind of a kind of person that's not going to cover something if I don't have some sort of like inkling that it could be true. Like I don't want to cover like say Bigfoot doing a backflip and slapping your grandma. Like I don't want to cover that. That's not something that like looks good on me, But yeah, like personally, if I don't believe in it, I'm not going to share it.
All right, give us a creature. I'm going to put you on the spot here. A creature that has come out there, you're like, there is no bloody way this thing is real. I'm not even putting this on my channel. It sounds way too dumb or way too fake. Is there one? Maybe two?
Man, there was one somebody sent me, and I just don't know what it's called. I can't remember the name, but it was like this creature that has like one eye, tentacles, plus like deer legs, and like a spiked tail. Like I don't know, it was like the weirdest type of thing. I was like, this is like some sort of tulpa or something. I don't remember what they called it, but that was something for sure. And I'm trying to think, man, that's really hard. It's been so long since I've been sent something that was like so crazy that I'm like, I can't share that. I'd probably say that's the only one I can think of off the top of my head. Most of the time that I won't share stories is just because like the details are too far-fetched rather than the creature itself.
I don't blame you at all. I don't blame you at all for that, because I mean, you do have to have editing skills for this. It's not just okay, somebody submits something and then I'm just going to read it and whatever happens. I mean, you do have to have a modicum of respect for your audience and namely the YouTube algorithms.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So getting back to something like the black-eyed children, it always seems to turn into, everybody believes that it ties into the Men in Black or extraterrestrials. With all the UFO flap that's going on now, are you seeing an uptick in UFO talk and or an upflip in alien encounters?
A little bit, yeah. I've definitely been sent more UFO stories recently than probably on average. But, like, encounters with actual, like, aliens or ETs or anything of that sort, like, have been super scarce. A lot of the times when people send me, like, stuff like that, it's mainly, like, they see it in, like, dreams. Or they like, I have read a few, like, abduction stories, but, in my opinion, I feel like abductions are kind of hard to tell when something's like a lucid dream or something and an actual like experience. I feel like that's always been why I've kind of been a little arm's length with like UFO type stuff and like alien type stuff, just because, not that I don't believe in it, but I don't really understand how to process a lot of it. Like, how am I going to explain this to the viewers to make it seem more or make it more digestible,
Yeah. So, I mean, when you're going through that in extraterrestrial encounters and people are having more lucid dreaming, as you're saying, they're not really sure. Do you ever get ones where people are having those daytime encounters or, maybe they're playing, like kids playing a game of hide and go seek and all of a sudden an alien pops out from behind a tree? Do you get those as well? And if so, could you share one with us?
Yeah, actually, this is one from one of my family members. We were playing Manhunt once, and I didn't see this personally, but I was there. And Manhunt is it's like extreme hide and seek, but outside. And we were running through the woods, and I can't remember if he was my cousin or my friend's cousin, but he's somebody that was always around. I haven't seen him in a few years, but he comes back crying, absolutely sobbing out of nowhere. The game is kind of ruined because, there's obviously somebody sobbing hella hard. We thought he got hurt or something. And we're asking him if he's okay, what happened, what'd you do? And he's just not talking. We bring him inside, nobody can calm him down. Eventually, his mom calms him down. And he starts talking about, the next day we see him again, he starts talking about, the big owl, you know what I mean? I'm just what are you talking about? What big owl? We have a lot of owls in Florida. We have, barn owls, everything, they're huge here. But, there were no, I think we would have heard or saw an owl, at least heard them, and there was no hooting or anything. So we were kind of confused. And then he started talking about it more, saying it was a really tall owl. And so we were still confused. What do you mean? A tall owl? That makes no sense. And eventually he kind of drew out a stick figure of what he saw, and it looked like what you would expect, kind of like a typical gray E.T. to look like, with these big eyes and these really long legs, but almost like an owl body at the top. The arms he drew, they were almost like penguin looking arms. It was weird. So that's one that comes to my mind first off when you talk about that is apparently this little kid saw an alien or something out there when we were all running around playing hide and seek, and it just terrified him.
Small arms, big head. That sounds like one of our wrenches in our YouTube chat named Fap. Honestly, it does. And I'm teasing. No, I'm not really, because he gives me shots all the time that I don't put on air, but it gave me the opportunity to do so. And for me, as an experiencer as well, I will never, ever forget what I saw in the forest when I had my first extraterrestrial encounter as well. I mean, when people are sending you these emails and these stories about what they have encountered, you are just giving the basis of the story. Do they ever get into the personal part about how this has affected them emotionally, how it's changed their lives, how it may have made things positive, maybe negative? Do they ever get that personal, in-depth that you can maybe leave out of the story?
Yeah, there's a lot of omissions. There's a lot of people will send in their story and then have kind of a letter or, kind of a preamble to it, a cover letter of a sorts, kind of, explaining things. And there's a lot of people that actually include that within their story as well. There's been a lot of beautiful, stories that I've read that where people have these crazy life-changing effects at the end, whether it's negative or positive. And quite often I'll get sent letters or especially on social media, I'll get messages all the time, people wanting to just express and vent themselves from these experiences they've had, but not necessarily share the stories on the show, which is completely fine with me as well. I don't want anybody to have to feel like they have to be on my show to be able to contact me and maybe just explain what they saw and have somebody not judge them and maybe try to figure out what it was they saw. I mean, I'm not an expert on anything. I don't claim to be a cryptozoologist. I don't claim to be a professional Bigfoot hunter. I don't claim to be anything other than just a guy at the YouTube channel with some interest in these things. And it's always an honor to see that people trust me enough to share these things.
With all the information that you were given through the personal experiences people are having, how do you control yourself from looking deeper into the subjects? Because that takes a lot of discipline. For me, I love patterns. And if I were to get 10 stories of Wendigos or black-eyed kids, I would be trying to find the patterns in regards to these scenarios. How do you stop yourself from doing that? Or secretly, are you looking for patterns or anything like that?
At one point I was. I actually was helping a lot with this Dogman sighting map for like all over the world for a long time. I was helping with Bigfoot sighting maps. I've done a lot of help with like allowing people to compile my stories and help, look for similarities, and as well as doing it myself. I just don't do it as much anymore because time has become a thing, and I'm just so busy trying to keep up with just the basics of the show that I can't do it as much. But when I do get free time, every so often I will sit down and compile all this stuff and look at it. And every so often I do put out cryptid documentaries. That is basically the result of these times that I'm sitting down and compiling these encounters and stories and everything that's sent to me to try to make some sort of sense and see if, like you said, if there are patterns, if these patterns, give us any information or help us, understand better what's actually happening, what this phenomena is.
Do you ever, as we got about 45 seconds left here, do you ever or have you ever kind of encountered something that has kind of led you down one of those rabbit holes?
What do you mean? Do you mean like encounter something in my life, or just like somebody sent something?
Just in regards to the patterns that people that you've seen.
Yeah, like I've noticed. I've definitely noticed like things happen in clusters. Happens like in threes. It seems like
right.
I'll get sent like 3 encounters with something very similar from like North Carolina, and then I'll get sent like 3 encounters from like something similar from Tennessee. All at once. It's kind of very, very interesting.
Rob, I'm going to get you to hold on right there as we're about to wrap up hour number 1 here on Spaced Out Radio. Rob Antia is here. You may not know his name, but you definitely will know his YouTube channel, Swamp Dweller. If you're into creepypasta stories like I am about all of these creatures that we talk about on Spaced Out Radio on a nightly basis, this is the man to listen to. Real tales from people like you, people like me who have experienced something of the unknown, and he's going in there telling your story at Swamp Dweller on YouTube, Swamp Dweller on, you just Google his website as well. We'll be back with more Spaced Out Radio right after this. I got tongue-tied there for a second. God damn.
So it happens to me all the time.
Oh, I hear you. We got about 6 minutes. I'm going to quickly run my dog outside. I'll be right back with you, okay? So I'm just going to put your microphone on mute, and I'll be right back. All right. Be right back, people. Commercial break. Sit tight. Sorry about that. Oh, my mic's on mute. Sorry about that, bud.
Yeah, no problem.
Having a great time with you tonight, man. We've got about 35 or about 45 seconds here before we're going to come on. Or no, sorry. Just over 90 seconds before we come back here.
Awesome.
Having fun?
Yeah, this is great. It's a good time.
Thank you so much for doing this, man. I really appreciate you.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me on.
Low Pro, how you doing? Welcome back to the chat room. Scrolling on down. Oob to Joe's Bane, you've got owls and aliens. And no, I did not say run the dog, Brian. Let's see here. Just making sure we're all caught up here. Simply Coco, looking lovely tonight. And what is your drink of choice for tonight, Coco? Please let us know. That's kind of important. And want to say a big thank you to Andrew, Jennifer, Apollo, Kat, Chaser, Dirty Phil, Tewaz, and Josh for the amazing super chats tonight. Thank you so much for all your support. And to all of our new listeners who are tuning in for the first time, like Black Dragon, thank you so much for taking the time to tune us in. We really do appreciate introducing new people to our show. Thanks tonight, courtesy of Swamp Dweller, bringing in a bunch of new listeners. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, ring that bell. We are here 7 days a week talking some major woo, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern time. We're going to get going here in about, let's see here, a couple of seconds. So sit back and get ready.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hello, everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America and digitally on TalkStream Live, Revolution Radio, and KPNL. All of our archives are free by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do old Davey the favor. Hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Yicker. Yicker is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show. And an update, because we do this all the time, it's a new feature here. Simply Coco, one of our listeners in YouTube, her drink of choice for the show tonight, pineapple vodka with a splash of cranberry pineapple juice. Sounds yummy, doesn't it? Tonight we are talking with the legendary Swamp Dweller, Rob Antia. He has his wonderful Creepypasta YouTube channel where you can hear stories from around the world on some of these incredible creatures and myths and folklore and legends that people are encountering on a daily basis. He puts up new videos all the time. I am a major fan of his work, and I hope you will too, and hit that subscribe button when you go check out his channel. Rob, welcome back to Spaced Out Radio.
Glad to be here.
Now, we have talked so much, so quickly here in hour number 1 about everything. You know, I look at your channel, and you deal with everything from these creatures to encounters from national parks and park rangers and stories from the deep woods and the swamps of Florida. You had one recently where you put up about the missing 411 people, where this person wrote in where they know where people are going. What do you think is happening there?
I think it's a mixed bag of things. I think obviously there's going to be weather, terrain, accidents, people getting lost, such like that. Inexperienced hikers doing things that are a little too hard for their skill level. And then I also think that wild animals, such like that, are also a thing. I think people falling into these cave systems. If you look at the map of missing 411 sightings, all the clusters are on where there also happens to be old mines and cave systems. And I also think that there could potentially be a supernatural side too. I mean, there's always the possibility that there is something otherworldly or unexplainable or unknown to us happening. But I do think it's a mixed bag of things ultimately. I don't think there's one single thing causing people to go missing.
Do you believe in the theory that maybe some of these people who go missing are actually walking into portals or into different timelines and they're not even realizing that they've done so, even though on this timeline they're now gone?
I want to say I do. Like I said, like it's hard to say. I guess I believe in it because there's not much to really study or know about this phenomenon. But I've been sent so many stories.
Your property is demanding. From mowing the lawn to running a farm, you need equipment that's easy to use, efficient, and affordable. You need John Deere equipment from SunSouth. And right now, owning a new John Deere is even more affordable with 0% financing up to 72 months on select models. Plus, save 20% off select John Deere parts during our Parts Extravaganza sale. For all of your equipment needs, come see us at SunSouth. Equipment for those that do.
Some restrictions apply. See dealer for details. Expires August 31st, 2021.
Expand your influence with the perfect music to play on any social video. With Premium Beat, you get tracks produced by award-winning musicians working in world-class studios, so all your videos sound professional. Best of all, unlike other music providers, our license gives you tracks for a lifetime. Pay once and never again. Save 25% on your next track. Just visit premiumbeat.com/royalty-free/podcast to redeem your coupon. That's premiumbeat.com/royalty-free/podcast.
I've looked into so many cases to where it just seems like people are walking through like these lost time stories. Like the other day in a recent episode, somebody sent in a story where they went outside at like 10 a.m. to go play with their friends, and then they went into the woods to do a shortcut, and they had some kind of weird, freaky encounter happen. So they run back home, and it turns out they were gone for 8 hours instead of the 20 minutes they thought they were. So the portal thing kind of makes sense to me. I'm not, again, like I said, I don't really know how to explain it, but it definitely does make sense.
So for you, do you have a favorite missing time story you could share with us?
I would say the one that came from a gentleman who worked at a fire lookout. He was going down because he saw what looked like smoke down yonder, and he needed to go, make sure, obviously, that there isn't a fire. So as he's running down his stairs, running into the woods to go see, try to go see where this thing is, he feels like he notices there's like this arch of trees. A lot of people mention that Bigfoot does kind of stuff like this, or that they see these things in the woods all the time, like these two trees bent over together, kind of like twisted together, like an arch. He runs through this arch, not thinking anything of it, and after a while of running, probably 5 or 10 minutes, he tires out and realizes that he's going past like the same stretch of woods over and over. Like he has not gotten any closer to where the smoke is, where this fire is, etc. And he starts freaking out. So he tries to run back the way he came, and he comes back to this arch. He runs to this arch, and he realizes right before he does that everything has been silent this whole time. There's been no birds, there's been no noise, there's been nothing. It's not even the breeze. The moment he walks back out through that arch, he hears bugs, birds, breeze hitting his face. It just feels like a completely different environment. And when he looks back and goes up back into his tower, he notices there was never any smoke at all. Like it's gone. So those are the, I don't know, there's just so many strange stories like that I get sent all the time when it comes to like missing time and going into the woods and passing through these arches. That's been like a big thing recently that I've been looking into. That's been a prevailing theme recently, is these arches in the woods.
One of the topics that kind of weirds me out, because I'm one of these guys who goes searching in the forest for Sasquatch up here in the mountains of British Columbia. And these stories about these creepy stairwells that just appear in the middle of a forest. There's no old house frame or building frame around it, just these stairwells. Have you investigated or had anybody report on these eerie stairwells, and did they ever climb to the top and see what happens? Because the theory is if you see one of these stairwells, you're not supposed to go up the stairs because something bad will happen when you get to the top.
Yeah, I know the whole original phenomenon for the stairs came from a search and rescue creepypasta series. that was popularized. But I have been sent a lot of stories for people allegedly are seeing these random staircases, and they kind of differ. I've even been sent a few pictures, and it's kind of weird when you see them. It'll be like a full-on like marble staircase, maybe not marble, but like concrete staircase, like something very nice. But like I guess I say marble because it's like pristine, you know, like it's completely white, it's completely fine, it looks brand new, but it's in the middle of the woods. Like it'll be a place where like, you know, you're hunting or something like that, like a place where like there was never gonna be a house, or there's no reason for that. And then you hear these other ones where people have like these wooden stairs that are popping up, and sometimes they go up in the trees, sometimes they don't. And I've only been sent maybe one or two stories of people actually attempting to climb these, but they've been super anticlimactic, so it's never been anything like they climbed it, went to a different universe or anything, because then I don't think they'd be here to share the story. But
would you ever go up them? Be honest.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I am that guy. I'll be the first. I probably would have ran up. No, I don't know. Like, probably after some heavy deliberation and probably being hyped up by whoever's with me, I probably would have ran up them.
Not me, man. That is one thing. I'm not taking the chance, because if there's any type of serious woo that happens, it'll happen to me. It just will.
No.
In hour 2 here of the show, I always like to include some audience questions here, if you don't mind, and we'll mix them in. DB Queen, or D Queen B, is asking, Swamp Dweller, is there a story that has scared you so to the core that you just cannot forget it?
That's a good question, and I would have to say, there was a story that was sent to me a long time ago, and it's no longer on the channel. Maybe I should redo it one day, but it was about a family who lived on a farm where they allegedly were encountering what I guess could be a dogman, some sort of bipedal wolf creature that was coming and just tearing up their livestock. And one day, their grandfather, who lived out in the shack on their property, got tired of it and ran out one night with his shotgun. And when they found him, he was found mauled, and it was actually posted in local newspapers that he was mauled by a bear and killed. But the family doesn't believe that because, well, there's no bears in the area and haven't been for a long time, so it would be very random that a bear suddenly mauls somebody in this area. Not to say it's impossible, but it was so after that they had no explanation. It was officially put as an animal attack, an accident. They had funerals and all that, but they were still having this problem to where their cattle, even their horses, were having these scratch marks on their legs, and this looked like they were spooked all the time, like they were being chased around by something. And that's one of the stories that sticks out the most, I'd say, that really shook me to the core, just because of how genuine it felt. And it was one of the first real long stories I ever did on the channel, and I was on the phone with the family. This is back when like I was much more hands-on with each story, since I didn't have, you know, hundreds coming in every week and all that. And it was just one of those experiences where I'll never forget hearing the fear in the family's voice, and that kind of just made me realize, like, regardless of like what I believe about, say, this monster or this story, these people have obviously encountered something that has shaken them, and that forever has stuck with me and shaken me.
Swamp Dweller is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. YJ, here in Canada, has a question for you. Have you ever had any reports of red-eyed, horned men with legs and hooves of a goat, so basically a goat man?
Dave has showed up at my house a few times. No, I'm just kidding. I've been sent a lot of stories of like goatmen type stuff over the years. Like I mainly get sent them from very interesting areas. It's mainly like rural areas, just outside of cities, like in Texas and places like New Jersey, where these stories seem to be coming from a lot. Delaware is a hot spot for some reason. For whatever reason, that little tiny state has a lot of goatmen running around.
Really? That amazes me. So
yeah, it's very interesting.
What do you think is the cause of that, or the root of it?
I think on one hand it is a mix of hysteria, a mix of wanting to be a part of something as well. I think some people kind of embellish what they're seeing, but I also think there's too many stories to simply dismiss something. There's obviously something going on. So I'm kind of like in the middle of like, is it misidentification of something else, or is there actually something going on? And I think what I think is interesting from what I've noticed over the years is that it always happens in clusters. So it's always clusters of people seeing these things and sending them in, and these people have no way of knowing each other, and a lot of the times these people are coming from different parts of the country and even different parts of the world sometimes, and their stories are so similar with details and just mannerisms of how these creatures act when being encountered that it's almost impossible to say that this is like a coincidence or misidentification.
You deal a lot with shadow people stories. And these ones, if you've never encountered a shadow person, it's very strange because, you know, I know when I have, it's kind of weirded me out, but it's kind of creeped me out at the same time. And SJ is wondering, is there a shadow person story that you could share that stands out for you the most?
Shadow people are one of my favorite paranormal topics. I recently did a video on those not too long ago. Honestly, I've seen them so many times, and I just wish I knew what they were. But the one that stands out to me is one that a friend of mine shared with me a long time ago that I put on the channel. He used to have really bad sleep paralysis, like to a point to where like most people, like for me, I've had it like twice in my life, and it was like maybe 30 seconds at most. He would have it for like solid like minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes sometimes, where he just could not move, but he's aware, and he would just have these crazy lucid experiences. And one night he had been having a bad day, he'd been in a bad mood, he'd been kind of exerting some negative energy all night. And so when he went to bed, he woke up probably around like 2-3 a.m. But like this was different than any other sleep paralysis, he said, because he felt like there was somebody actually like choking him and holding him down. And when he opens his eyes, he sees this complete dark shadow person holding him by the neck, like forcing him down on the bed. And then he sees two more trying to hold his feet. And he can't move, he can't do anything, he can't make a noise, he feels like he can't breathe, and he feels like he's going to die. And this was probably going on for a solid 30-45 seconds, and then he hears, it's like a buzzing noise almost, is what he says, and it's coming from like the corner of the room, and he looks up, and what he thinks when he says he thinks the noise is coming from the corner of the room, that's where the sound is coming from, but when he looks up, it's hard to explain. Like there's like this dark disc above him, and it's just making this. It's like spinning really fast, and this humming noise that's kind of off, weirdly coming from a different angle from where it's from. And then when he looks back at the person holding him, suddenly its eyes open, and like there's these two like white, bright lights for eyes, and then they just disappear. And like he can breathe again. He's freaking out. He's flailing. He's literally running out of his house screaming like, "What the hell just happened?" And that's just such a creepy experience to me, because it almost reminds me of like an alien thing or something. Like I don't know. Like that's why these shadow being stories are so interesting, because some sound more like ghosts, some sound more like demons, some even sound like aliens.
No kidding. And that's the creepy part. We just don't know what they are, where they're coming from. Or are they figments of imagination? Now, one of my favorite topics is time travel. And Solar Warden here has a question. Within the realm of cool tales and creepypasta, what are your thoughts on John Titor, one of the originals to pioneer early internet lore circa 1998 to 2001? Do you ever get time traveler stories?
I feel like I have been sent something like that, but I don't think I've ever done anything on the channel or on the podcast or anything like that about that. But I am very interested in time travel. I think there's a lot of very compelling arguments out there. But I'm kind of, it's one of those many topics where I can go either way at this point, because it's just like there's just so much out there and there's so many ideas and such, but I kind of feel like it's a thing. It makes sense. Like interdimensional travel, time travel, all this stuff kind of makes sense to me.
Yeah, that is one of the topics that it enthralls me, because I really do believe maybe it's the kid in me who wants to see or hear from time travelers that are actually from the future. I mean, the ones I've heard online, don't buy them. but I think it'd be interesting to see if there are people coming here from the future to check this out. I don't know. It's just one of those weird topics that just intrigues me. Body Void wants to ask you, do you have a cat?
I actually recently did just get a cat. It's a hairless Sphinx cat, and she's probably the most annoying thing I ever got in my life. But I do love her.
Yeah, we're turning into a cat house here.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Yeah, 2 dogs and now 3 cats. 3. There's a stray that has decided to find a home here. So anyways, Lazarus, is asking, are you planning on doing any documentary-type projects in the near future?
Yes, I have one on the Camazotz coming soon, which is one of my favorite cryptids from Mexican lore. And I also have one coming on the Aztecs and all their lore, and then I do have one in the works slowly that's on the St. John's River monster here in Florida. It's just going to take some weird timing because, unfortunately, one of the researchers I was working with, the main guy, passed away recently, so we're kind of having to figure out how to end it in a kind of solemn but, I guess, tribute way.
What's that creature in Mexico?
The Camazotz.
What the heck is that?
It's essentially what Batman was based off of. If you look up the Mexican Batman, you'll be shook when you see these things from Mayan and Quiche lore. You'll see these literally looks just like Batman. But there was the running theory for Camazotz. It's the death bat, by the way. It's what many of the Mayan and Quiche people thought were like basically the messengers of the underworld and whatnot. But what a lot of people think there were these giant bats in South America that used to live all the way up until right around the time these tribes actually started dying out, and these bats were like 4 to 5 feet tall, like from head to toe, just standing, and their wingspan was massive. I can't remember the name of them, but I'll have to send you some links after the show. But there's a lot of interesting stuff about what these death bats could have been.
Oh my goodness, never heard of that. Thank you for sharing that. All right, Mennonite Abe is asking, do you have any stories about phone calls from beyond the grave?
I don't know. Maybe not. Well, I guess I can think of vague details from some stories, but the closest thing I can think of off the top of my head was a story about this guy whose mother died not too long ago, and then he got really sick, like basically like life-threatening sick. I think it was some sort of cancer. And as he was, attempting to recover with doing chemo and all this, he was staying on his friend's couch. And one night when he wakes up, because I think he said for like a week before that he was smelling what smelled like garbage every night when he was sleeping. It smelled like it wouldn't be there during the day, but this morning, it didn't go away. And the friend upstairs came down and was like, "What is that smell?" But the friend couldn't figure it out, so he's looking around the house trying to figure out where the smell's coming from. When he's coming back down the stairs to the living room with the friend, where the guy who's dying is sleeping, he sees what looks like some lady trying to put a pillow over his face. And then when he runs down yelling at her, she disappears. And when he gets to the friend actually was awake the whole time with tears down his face because like sleep paralysis basically, and was saying that was his mom trying to kill him.
Oh my goodness.
From the afterlife, yeah.
That's terrible. That's terrible. We've got about 2 minutes here. Big J wants to know if you've got any Slender Man stories that have freaked you out a little bit.
I've gotten some Tulpa stories that have that basically are Slender Man stories where they believe. Basically, a Tulpa is when you believe something hard enough that it becomes true. So I've read a few stories where people have allegedly seen these Slender Man after believing it so hard and kind of conjuring it for themselves.
So do you believe in these Tulpa-type stories, whether it's Siren Man, Slender Man, Hat Man?
The Siren Head stuff and some of those, not too much. But stuff like Hat Man, definitely. I've had plenty of encounters of my own with this Hat Man thing. But Tulpas, I believe in it. I do believe that I believe when you speak things into existence, if there's enough belief, enough energy, and enough human willpower, that sometimes things can happen. And I think we see examples of that all the time with things like religion and such. So,
yeah, much like the word is on the tip of my tongue here. The jinn is kind of what we see with that too. So that's kind of interesting that you're going there. Now, for you, there's a lot of First Nation stories. There's a lot of stories from the Middle East that make their way over here. Do you believe in a lot of those legends? That these older cultures still carry over to today.
Oh, definitely. I think they change as time changes. I think as a good example would be like skinwalkers and wendigos, how they've changed into like deer monsters over the years instead of possessing people and such. So I think a lot of those Middle East and like European monsters and a lot of like just First Nations people in general all over the world, a lot of the stories stem from like cautionary tales. They stem from times where there was no other explanation but this. At least in my opinion.
No, I hear you there. I totally hear you there. 1 second as we're going to go to break here at the bottom of the hour. Swamp Dweller himself, Rob Antia, is here sharing spooky stories, your questions, of all the creatures in the night that literally scare the pants off of us. We continue with Swamp Dweller on Spaced Out Radio coming up right after this. I'm not going to lie, I'm having a blast tonight, man. I am having a blast.
Oh, I'm glad. It's a good time.
I'm glad you're enjoying it, man. Thank you. Oh. We're getting lots of compliments from our chat room tonight, so that's kind of cool.
I'm glad everybody's enjoying it. That's great.
We've got a couple of minutes here.
For sure. Yeah, I definitely get more into a lot of obscure cryptids. That's been my goal with like the documentaries, is try to just bring stuff that people don't know about. Like Bigfoot and all that stuff is really cool, but like everybody and their grandma is like an expert on Bigfoot apparently and like has a book about it. But like nobody ever talks about like the bunyip or the Camazotz or the knot deer or any of these other tons of really awesome creatures and lore.
Well, we'll get into that if you don't mind. Obscure.
Yeah, sure. I can go on for days. There's so many.
That's what I love. I love those ones. It's kind of like I talk to my paranormal buddies about this. You watch all the paranormal shows and you see all these paranormal groups on social media, and they're all like, oh, I can't wait to go to Waverly Hills or Gettysburg or Alcatraz. I am so sick of that crap. There are literally thousands of little towns in North America alone that have their own little creature, their own little creepypasta story that they don't want getting out to the public, or because they're so small, it'll never get out to the public. Those are the stories I want to hear, man. Those are the good. That's where the good stuff is. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. That's been my goal the past year or so, is just making like these mini documentaries on all of these local lores.
In South Dakota, we're looking forward to exploring new roads and wide open spaces. When you're ready to travel, go great places. Learn more at TravelSouthDakota.com.
Expand your influence with the perfect music to play on any social video. With Premium Beat, you get tracks produced by award-winning musicians working in world-class studios, so all your videos sound professional. Best of all, unlike other music providers, our license gives you tracks for a lifetime. Pay once and never again. Save 25% on your next track. Just visit premiumbeat.com/royalty-free/podcast to redeem your coupon. That's premiumbeat.com/royalty-free/podcast.
I say St. John River monster, like the Altamaha monster, all these. There's like a million monsters just from like, I'm sure even like if you step outside in your local area, you'll probably be able to find at least 5 or 6 legends from whether it be a lake monster or some Bigfoot type thing or whatever. They're out there, so it's endless.
Yeah, I totally hear you on that. Oh, look at that! I got a daddy long legs right on my desk here.
Oh, he's chilling.
Let's see if I can get him here. Got him. Slow down, buddy, because we're going to take you outside. Take you outside. Hold on. There we go. We can go to another one there. Seriously, guys. My screen broke on my window.
Oh, man.
So I get this invasion. I don't kill spiders because, as much as they creep me out, they eat all the bugs. So, I mean, how can you be too mad at them?
Oh, yeah.
Do you get any Megalodon stories?
Probably. I don't think so. I don't know. Like, it's kind of hard question. I have to, go through the archives and, search for the keywords. I could probably do that real quick. Let me see if I can open it.
I can do that. I'm right here.
I got a lot of... So I have, archives on the back end of the website and then, in the email and all that, but probably, 11 to 12,000 stories. So, keywords will help me a little bit, but it still takes a long time to find specific stories.
That's okay. Would you mind if, and I'll keep this kind of vague because we are kind of live, but would you mind if I gave you a call off the air sometime soon here? I want to just ask you a couple of YouTube's questions.
Yeah, anytime, yeah. You got my info.
Yeah.
Anytime you want to talk or anything, yeah, sure.
Yeah, that would be cool because we're all about improving our channel here and getting things going. And, you're having success. I know some other people who are having success, and that's how we kind of like to learn, So that way we can keep being accused of buying followers.
Oh, yeah, man. Teamwork makes the dream work, and that's... when people are accusing you of very nonsensical things like that don't really make any sense if you think about it, they're just jealous. You made it at that point.
Right on. We got about 25 seconds. I want to say a big thank you to Andrew, to Jennifer, Kat, Apollo, Dirty Phil, Tewaz, and Joshua for the amazing super chats. It's a great way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis. And a big thank you to you for helping us on out. Big thank you to all our new subscribers here on Spaced Out Radio. We appreciate you. Here comes the second half of the show right now. Past the halfway point of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate earning your listening ears. Reminder to all of you that if you miss portions of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show. We continue on tonight with Creepypasta stories. One of the best on YouTube for these stories, and literally he is downloading daily, is Swamp Dweller. You want to hit subscribe on this channel, and Rob Antia, the mastermind and creator of Swamp Dweller, is here with us tonight sharing some of these weird, strange creatures that he gets told about from public like you who have these encounters, don't know where to turn. Send him the letters, and he reads the stories and puts them on the air. Rob, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me on. It's been a great time.
Oh, it's been a lot of fun. I got still a bunch of audience questions here, and, I want to get to this one before we get to a question that I have for you. And Smokin' Joe is asking, he goes, I live along the Missouri River. Do you have any Momo reports?
Missouri Monster reports, huh? Honestly, I think I've gotten one, and that was so long ago. It's in one of my oldest videos ever, which is a long compilation of Bigfoot encounters. Yeah, I think that's the only one I've ever done that was specifically related to the Momo.
Do you like sea monsters?
Yeah, I think they're fun.
Not me, man. Meal. I'm a meal.
I'm a toothpick, so hopefully they'll go past me and go with the better option there.
I am so never hanging out with you by water. I'm just telling you that right now, because
I specifically hang out with people who are bigger than me by water for that reason.
I don't blame you. I'm the type of guy where if I went to North Carolina looking along the beach for megalodon and I stuck my pinky toe in the water, that's the time that a great white or megalodon is going to literally come out of the ocean, come right up on shore and grab me. That's how paranoid I am. Thank you to my sisters for forcing me to watch Jaws as a kid. So that's literally where it stands. You deal with, and I know one of your passions is, you love the Bigfoot stories, the Shadow People stories, Dogman. Everybody talks about them. But I think you're a lot like me, where it's these weird, strange creatures that no one really ever talks about. These obscure cryptids that are out there that seem to inhabit all of these small towns and local legends and folklore. What are some of your favorites out there?
I mentioned Camazotz earlier. I mentioned Meshuggah as well, but I'd probably say some of my other favorites would be like the Altamaha monster from Georgia, which is like a river monster. Kushtaka is a very interesting one. It's like a shape-shifting monster from Native American lore. Thunderbirds are very interesting. But one that's actually from your neck of the woods that I like a lot is something called the Backwest. It's like a supernatural spirit type wild man monster that like eats what they call ghost food out of what do they call it? Cockle shells, I think. And oftentimes they'll present themselves to try to help somebody who's lost in the woods. And a lot of the times when people go missing in the British Columbia area, especially in the woods, they think it's a Backwest. And especially the Missing 411 talk about this a lot. Because it'll offer you help, like, hey, come stay in my cabin. It's down here, and in order to basically, it'll lure you in there so it could enslave you to get them more food, and then if you cannot get them the food that they want, then I guess they make you disappear.
Oh wow, yeah, that's fun. Considering I'm in the mountains here of BC, I appreciate you giving me that one to look out for now. You know, I can tell you this. My son was about 3 years old. So this is going back about 5 years. We had just moved here. And one of the hobbies that we do is geocaching. And my son and I went out on we have a lake that's about 3 miles away from us. And there's a beautiful trail that goes right around the lake. And my son and I we came up to this geocache, and he's still in his stroller, and it's that time of year where normally I would allow my son to walk, but it's that time of year in late August, early September when we were doing this, where it's bear season here. And at any time, we're walking down the trail, and, I can't have my son there. I had him in his stroller because just in case we encountered a bear, it's easier to get away with him in a stroller rather than me trying to carry him out at that point. Long story short, here we are. We get this geocache. I put him back in his stroller, and we kind of walk up this knoll, and we get to the top, and we see this little, I don't even know how to explain it. Like, there's a drop-off to our left that goes down about 30 feet to the lake. And it's pretty steep. But coming up from that side, about 25 feet in front of us, there is this little 18-inch creature. Literally looks like a rotted 2x4 with little, like, South Park, like, I hate to use this terminology, but I don't know how else to explain it. It had, like, the character Towley on South Park?
Yeah.
Okay, with the little stringy arms and the hands and the little feet, or the tiny pegs for legs with the little feet. That's what it looked like. And it comes walking up this embankment, from the embankment, starts taking a few steps onto the trail, And we stop, and it stops, and it looks at us, and then took off like a split second, just like that, like it was Usain Bolt, right back down the hill there. It all lasted a second or two, but the one thing that I remember about this creature is it's 20 feet in front of me, and it's blurry, man. It has like a little blur to it. And I've never seen anything like that. I talked to a First Nations friend of mine about it. He said it was a creature called a wood nymph that kind of patrols and takes care of the forest, picks up garbage, making sure that everything it tries to be clean. Have you ever heard of any of those type of weird small little creatures, maybe like garden gnomes or gargoyles or goblins running around?
Yeah, actually, there's one that, man, what's the name of them? I'm trying to think of their name right now. It's escaping me at the very moment. No, it's called a Yahasuri, which basically it's a Catawba legend from South Carolina, which is basically roughly translates to a wild little people. And basically, they are described as looking at like all kinds of things. Like sometimes they'll look like frogs with like bipedal frogs. Sometimes they'll look like giant bugs. Sometimes they even look like just little humans, apparently. And they live in like tree stumps and stuff. And the stories that people have sent in about these little people are super strange and kind of remind me of what you were talking about, because a lot of times like people say like it almost looks like there's like a mist or like a shroud around them, because like you can't see them clearly almost.
Yeah, I mean, I always wonder about that blurriness, because you gotta, when people are trying to photograph Dogman or Bigfoot, we're not all bad photographers or videographers, and yet we always get the blob squatch because of the blurriness. And when I saw this creature with my son, I often wonder if that had something to do, or if these creatures have something to do with the fact that they have this ability to blur themselves out.
Yeah, it's almost like it reminds me of a term that a lot of people bring up in the Sasquatch world, is this term cloaking. It almost kind of reminds me of that, where they have some sort of ability to be able to distort or hide themselves in some sort of manner. And it's interesting. I've often wondered it. I have stigmatism myself, so like at nighttime lights and such are like super blinding and all that. And I've often wondered, like, when I'll be in like a national park or something, and it looks like there's something in the distance, but it's like super blurry. But then I also notice like sometimes I'll see like a moose or a deer in the distance, and I can see it just fine. So I've always wondered what that's about.
Me too. Jeannie, a new listener here for the first time. Thank you for joining us in our chat room, Jeannie. She is asking. She's a good Canadian kid, by the way. Although she probably cheers for the Maple Leafs, so we'll just hold a reservation on that for right now. She's asking, Swamp Dweller, have you ever heard of any stories about stick people?
Yes. So there's like two different ones. Like there's ones that are like people that are a sort of like Bigfoot type thing, a sort of thing like that. Then there's also like the stick Indians, which is more of I believe it's a Canadian thing. It's like a Salish thing. I'm not sure if that's Canada.
Coast Salish, that's by me.
Okay, so it's like in that area, so like it depends like exactly which one they're talking about, but like stick people in general most of the time refers to like a Bigfoot or Sasquatch type being. And I have read a few of those in the Bigfoot compilations in the past.
You have talked a lot about Missing 411 and the incredible work of David Politis and his investigations. On your channel, Swamp Dweller, on YouTube, you also have a lot of different videos and stories coming from people in national parks. Is there a story or two that you have that really stuck out from you that people have encountered?
In national parks, for sure. Like, there is a never-ending bag of tricks in these places, and there just seems to be such a hotbed of energy and just weird mumbo-jumbo going on in these places, and it seems like it's acknowledged to an extent by the government and the National Park Service and such. One of the more interesting ones is just, I would have to just say, is the plethora of people who keep having lost time in these national parks. They'll go in, it'll be 10 a.m. bright and early, and they'll feel like they just started a trail like 20 minutes in, and then suddenly they're gone for 3 days. They find people are looking for them. There's these search parties going all over these hills, all through these forests, all through these canyons, helicopters, everything. And these people can't be found, and then they suddenly just walk up into the parking lot like nothing ever happened. And it felt like 20 minutes for them, but it's been 3 days in reality. And I've been sent a story about a man and his son where he lost his son for literally 3 days. His son was missing in a local state park around where I live. And he literally just walked off normally and felt like he was just, having a good time before they were going to go down the trail. And then suddenly his dad can't find him anywhere, freaking out. Like I said, 3 days of searching, and then just like normal, walked out of the bushes into the parking lot, looking completely clean, pristine, not a single speck of dirt. But it had been 3 days. The kid wasn't shaken, wasn't hungry, wasn't. It was so weird. It's hard to explain those type of things, but that's definitely one that stands out the most, at least recently, anyway.
Do a lot of these people who come back from being missing, have you ever talked to them or inquired about what they remember or where they went or what happened?
Yeah, I've done quite extensive conversations with a lot of these, with a lot of the people that I've been able to cover stories from that have, obviously have come back and or survived. And one person said something that was very interesting to me, was that if they felt like they were, they said like they felt like they were almost in like a dream state. They said they were walking, they were hiking, having a good time, listening to their podcasts, and they said that it felt like they were lightheaded at first. Like, have you ever been like spacey, like very foggy headed? Where you're going about your day, but like you can't really think straight. You can't really. It's just one of those days where like things aren't clicking in your brain. That's what they mentioned that they felt like. They just felt like all of a sudden like everything went foggy. They were having a hard time kind of focusing on what they were doing, and several hours later they snapped out, and it was suddenly dark out. It had been like 10 hours that had gone by. They had somehow ended up in some super remote part off the trail because they had, I guess, just completely spaced somehow and just continued like a drone walking off trail just forward the entire time, I guess, for 10 hours. And when they come out, they said it was like waking up from like a hangover. They said like it was like they were in a stupor. They had like a migraine. They felt like piercing pains in the front of their brain, and it was just all around like just like a bad drug trip almost. But these people, allegedly, according to them, were not doing drugs.
Yeah, no kidding. I was telling a story on our previous show with Steve Stockton about I have a Bigfoot gifting site up here. And one day I was out with my friends at the gifting site, and the gifting site is probably about 250 feet off of the main logging road. And this is an area that I had been to, more than 3-4 dozen times. And we decided we were going to leave, and I was the lead guy coming out. Everybody's following me. I all of a sudden didn't know where I was. Like, every tree looked the same. I had no idea where the exit was. And this is something where I knew where my gifting site was. I knew where we were standing, but I could not figure out how to get out of the forest. And I started with, like, my anxiety started picking up. And, you start breathing heavily. Your mind starts racing. And I'm like, where am I? Like, are we lost? And I don't want to go anywhere because you don't want to, that's how people get really lost. You know what I'm saying? When they hit that panic stage. And it wasn't until a couple of minutes later, I actually heard another vehicle coming up the logging road that I was able all of a sudden to snap back into it and realize where the logging road was, where we were parked. And I can tell you, man, from firsthand experience, that feeling of all of a sudden being lost, especially in an area that I am extremely familiar with, that I would never bring a compass to because it's, like I said, it's only 250 feet off the road. It was a freaky feeling of panic there.
It's described as disorienting a lot in stories.
Yeah.
Like, you just feel completely like, it's almost like being like ripped out of reality for a second and thrown back in, you know?
I don't recommend it. That's for
Oh,
sure.
no.
That's for sure. You deal a lot in the forest. We talked about the park rangers and people getting lost in the forest. It would be remiss, with 6 minutes to go here before we got to take a break at the top of the hour, about some of your favorite Bigfoot stories or Dogman. Let's stick with Bigfoot right now. We can tap on Dogman when we come back. But your Bigfoot stories, do you have a couple of favorites?
Yeah. My favorite of all time is just one that just sticks out to me because it's such a weird story. It's a story that I heard actually from, I believe, Les Stroud on one of his podcasts, because he's a big Bigfoot advocate out there. And he was talking about a guy. Actually, no, never mind. That's incorrect. I actually was sent this story now that I think about it. There's a guy who apparently was camping and was abducted by what he believes to be a female Bigfoot. And this female Bigfoot apparently had a hole that was dug about 6 feet deep. And what she did was lick his hands and feet until they were raw, so he couldn't walk.
For the ones who know that a little late is always too late, and that the clock doesn't stop just because you're missing a part, Grainger offers supplies and solutions for every industry. And our Keep Stock inventory management solutions help ensure you have the right stuff in the right place at exactly the right time. Visit Grainger.com/keepstock to learn more. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Every editor knows the perfect video needs the perfect music to make it really pop. Find it easily on Premium Beat, where you'll hear world-class music produced by award-winning musicians. Best of all, unlike other music providers, our license gives you tracks for a lifetime. Pay once and never again. Save 25% on your next track. Just visit premiumbeat.com/royalty-free/podcast to redeem your coupon. That's premiumbeat.com/royalty-free/podcast.
Crawl or get away, and I think she did the same thing to his knees. So she would cuddle him and hold him all night and stuff like that, and then leave him in the hole during the day when she would leave. Eventually he escaped, yeah. A lot of people debate that story. I think it's been told on other mediums and platforms as well. And that's one of my favorite ones. It's a crazy one. Another one is coming up from, I believe, Vancouver, maybe that area. I do believe it's Vancouver. This family has a cabin up there. It's kind of remote or something like that. It's like in the woods, and I guess one day they come back during the night after going out for dinner, and they see that their door has been like absolutely smashed into pieces. Like somebody like splintered it. Like somebody it almost looks like somebody like freaking like just super punched through the door. And their windows are trash, and then in the inside it just looks like a freaking bear went nuts. So at first they thought a bear, but they were really confused about the smashed door, the windows. It almost looked like vandals, but there was no evidence that people were there. So they set up these cameras, and these cameras are like night vision cameras. They see everything in the dark because everything seemingly happens when they're not there at night. So they left. They try to test this out for a couple of weeks. Nothing's happening. One night, they go about their night again. They go out for dinner. They're doing their thing. When they come back, they notice that all the cameras were ripped down and, like, stomped out. Like, it looked like something took it and, like, stepped on them. And so they go in. They check the footage up until it's obviously ripped off. And all they see before these cameras are being ripped off is just, like, some matted-looking black fur. They see what looks like a big hand and a matted-looking fur, and then it just cuts out. And that's one of my favorite all-time Bigfoot stories.
I have actually heard there's a Bigfoot researcher in Colorado named Mike Johnson, and he had this new investigator with him who was all about trail cams. And Mike was like, "Buddy, they're not going to be able to be photographed on trail cam. They don't like him. They take him apart. They step on him. They do whatever. And this guy just was all about trail cam, trail cam, trail cam. So he took a trail cam. He muddied it up. He put sticks around it, rocks around it, so it looked very natural. They go out on their walking tour looking for evidence and footprints and everything. They come back like 15 minutes later. The camera is broken apart, sitting right behind their vehicle, right on the ground now. The batteries have been ripped out. And this isn't the first time I've heard this, where the Sasquatch, they don't like to be photographed.
Yeah, seemingly so. It seems like ultimately, from my biggest understanding, is that they just want to be left alone. If Sasquatch indeed is out there, they just don't want to be bothered.
Yeah, Mike Johnson also has another tradition. So if you're a first time going into his Sasquatch area, and they put the tent, so they angle the door to the tent to the fire pit, and the person who is newest has to sleep at the back end of the tent with their cot, against the back wall of the tent. And he said it never fails that rookie person who is there, when they are camping in this one spot, will literally have their head and their arms felt from the other side of the tent by a Sasquatch. Said it's crazy.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Vinny, we got about 90 seconds. We can fit Vinny's question in here. Do you have any stories about floating people?
I've shared like stories of like people being picked up or moved like temporarily by like what they believe to be like a spirit or a possession, but I don't know about floating people.
Yeah, that is one where I think what he's talking about, maybe like you hear of these floating people in the sky. They almost look like witches. They see them in Mexico. These witch type of creatures. I think that's what he's talking about.
I mean, I've been sent like similar stories to that, but no, I don't. Nothing. I guess in that realm specifically.
That is freaky, because I mean, there's those videos out of like the 80s, that are shot by really shaky camera people. The old VHS video cameras that you would use. There is some videos of floating people that have gone out there, but I mean, who knows of the trickery that was happening back then, as the video wasn't that good. But you know what? I'm going to get you, Rob, to hold on right there, because we are going to go to break here at the top of the hour. We have 2 hours down. We have Rob Antia from Swamp Dweller on YouTube, which I highly suggest that you hit that subscribe button to. We have him for another 30 minutes here on Spaced Out Radio, and then after that, we are going to bring in John Hudson for the unbiased UFO report to come on in before Captain Shirk's news and the thought of the day in the final half hour of tonight's show. We're having a great time. We're going to get into a little bit of Dogman with the Swamp Dweller, Rob Antia. Make sure that you go hit that subscribe button on his channel. You will not be disappointed. And after this show, throw it on your headset as you're going to sleep. See if you can actually make it into sleep mode with Swamp Dweller. All right, my friend, I am just going to run upstairs and get a glass of water here. I will be right back, okay?
Sounds good.
All right, I'm just going to mute you. Be right back, people. All right, I'm back. Yeah, let me get you off mute here. Hi, Crow Creek. How you doing? Good to see you. And Typical Watch, nice to have you back. Guillermo, how you doing, man? Good to have you here. Richard, nice to see you. And let's see who else we have. Moonflower, welcome to our channel for the first time. I think we're caught up. Let's see here. When we get to the commercial break at the bottom of the hour, just stick with me until we go into the commercial break, and I'll say a proper good night to you.
All right, sounds good.
Yeah. So, that'll be cool. Mm-hmm. The gorgeous and talented Wendy Williams is here, everyone. Drop out. Oh, there it is. Let's see. Iskaral, welcome back to the channel. How are you? Yes, Swamp Dweller does have a new cat. I did ask that question earlier. It's driving him crazy, the new cat.
Oh, all she wants is food. That's all she wants, that and pets. She'll scream at me every morning if I'm not petting her while she's eating. It has to be while she's eating or she's not happy.
Strange.
Animals are animals.
Very true. I would like somebody to solve the USB mystery where you put it in the first time, it doesn't go in, you flip it over, it doesn't go in, then you put it back to the original side and it goes in.
Oh, yeah, every single time.
I want to know what that's about. Like, how does that happen?
I know, that's some CIA spooky stuff right there, man. You don't want to question that.
No. Probably one of the weirdest things internet-wise that I had is one night I was sitting in the studio and I was doing some editing work and I was craving a bag of chips. And so I go upstairs, grab a bag of Miss Vicky's potato chips from my cupboard. Didn't mention it, come downstairs, my camera, wasn't on or anything like that. And within as soon as I opened up the bag, I refreshed Facebook, and all of a sudden I'm hit with 3 Miss Vicky's chips advertisements in a row.
They're watching, bro. They're listening.
It was the weirdest thing. I think there's something in the codes. That's what I think it is. In the barcodes that something picked up.
It used to freak me out when they first started doing that, because I'd be like talking to somebody about something, and then suddenly it's everywhere on your phone. You're like, what the heck?
Yeah. And the stupid part about it is Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook still deny it.
No, yeah. It's like, just a minute. We all know it. It's like, we're not stupid.
I know. Like, give us a break here. Yes, Guillermo says we need a program about the USB stick phenomena.
You have to charge it, is what my dad says, is you have to turn it over once or twice to charge it before it goes in.
Maybe. Randy Spurl, how you doing? And we've got about 45 seconds. Miss Vicky's chips are just the best.
No, they're great, yeah.
They're fantastic. And, yeah, like Laura says, try thinking about a product and watch it come up on your phone. That is the weird one. That's a weird one for me. All right, a big thank you to Christopher, to Andrew, Jennifer, Apollo, Cat Chaser, Dirty Filth, Taywaz, and Josh for the amazing super chats tonight. It's really a cool thing to do to help support this show on a nightly basis. Thank you to all of our brand new subscribers who've tuned in because you were fans of Swamp Dweller. We really do appreciate it. The third hour of Spaced Out Radio is going to start right now.
Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Here we go with the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. We want to say hello to everyone tuning us in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America and digitally on TalkStream Live, Revolution Radio, and KPNL. All of our archives are free for you by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Yicker. Yicker is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show. For the final time tonight, we introduce an awesome guest, and if you're a fan of creepypasta stories, which are real haunted, true tales of people's encounters with monsters from ghosts to Bigfoot, this is the channel you want to subscribe to because he puts out content almost every single day. Swamp Dweller is the name of the channel. Its creator, Rob Antia, is here with us tonight. And Rob, it has been such a pleasure to have you on this show for the first time. Man, I would love to be able to have you back again, and hopefully we did enough to impress you tonight to want to come on back sometime.
Oh yeah, anytime. I'm always willing to come on. This has been such a fun time so far, and there's always more to talk about. That's for sure.
Absolutely, my friend. We really do appreciate getting to know you on this show. And whenever you want to come on, you just let me know, and we'll make some room for you. We could definitely accommodate that. You know, Dogman is very, very popular right now. Over the last couple of years, we see a lot more people talking about these Dogman encounters that they're having. You mentioned earlier a great podcast called Dogman Encounters with Vic Cundiff, and there's a lot of great channels out there like that. For you, as people report in these Dogman stories to you, I mean, to me, this is a creature, man, that is just so pissed off for no reason. It is angry like a house cat, and yet it's out there in the forest, and it's scaring the daylights out of people. When was the first time you heard of Dogman?
First time I heard of Dogman was when I experienced something that kind of looked like a Dogman, and I ended up finding a show called Dogman Encounters and getting in touch with Vic Cundiff, and even going on the show myself at one point and sharing my experience. And that was kind of the first time I ever found it out, because I knew, I heard werewolves and stuff, and I've always been interested in cryptids, but at that point in my life I wasn't really much more versed outside of, the Loch Ness Monster or Bigfoot or Mothman, something like that. I never heard of this Dogman, and I was super enthralled and interested about it. And after I discovered it, I discovered that Dogman is kind of like a vague term. You got the Michigan Dogman, the Beast of the Land Between the Lakes. You got the Azul, the Wahila, the Crocata, the Ozark Howler. There's so many different variations of this same monster essentially. And I found it just on accident when I happened to have seen something, and I was just Googling stuff trying to figure out what it was, because like I said, I thought it was like a hyena that was standing up or something, but it was just not quite an area a hyena would be in, living in Florida and all.
Right. So for you, as the Dogman stories started coming into Swamp Dweller, I mean, did you notice the situations that people were having, that this creature was really terrifying them?
Yeah. To me, Dogman seems more bark than bite. It seems like a lot of the times, don't get me wrong, I have read stories of attacks and them being very aggressive, but it seems a lot of the times that they're more territorial and they just want you to leave their area, unless, it seems like they don't want to have problems if they don't need to have problems. But it seems that the way they go about expressing this territorialness is just in a very aggressive, almost predatory type thing. I don't know. I have a mixed bag of feelings on the whole Dogman things. They're angry, they're mean, they're aggressive, but it's hardly ever that you hear of attacks or anything like that.
What do you think about, before we get into some Dogman stories, what do you think about these creatures where people claim that they can hear telepathic messages from them, basically saying, like to hunters, basically telling hunters, you should really look at putting your rifle down. It wouldn't be good for you, or something along those lines. Have you ever looked into we hear that with Bigfoot too, these telepathic voices that they hear. What's your thoughts on that?
Honestly, I've never really researched too far into that topic. It's been on my list for a long time, this telepathy that people seem to have. And it kind of just goes into this greater kind of conspiracy or theory or just kind of idea that floats around a lot, is that these things are either interdimensional or extraterrestrial in nature, because a lot of encounters with these ETs and such seem to be the same. So it's very, like, it just seems like very muddy. But the telepathy thing, I've just never really looked too deep into it, because it's just something that doesn't pop up too prevalent, but it is common enough that I guess it does warrant, scratching your head a little bit.
Very true. Very true. So for you, when you, as I watch a couple of daddy long legs walk on my counter here, I don't like that. But anyways, as you were hearing these Dogman stories, are there a couple that really stand out for you?
A lot of them are kind of similar to each other. There's a lot of, Dogman chased me or Dogman scared me kind of stories, but I'd say ones that stick out a lot are ones that where the description of the monster. There's one where they were in, I want to say it's Twin Falls. I'm not exactly, I think it's Idaho. Might be wrong. I'm sorry to anybody who lives in Twin Falls. But they were out there in a rural part of town right outside of the city, and they were playing, I believe, I can't remember what they were playing in the woods, some sort of game. I think they were shooting paintball or something, and they see this creature, or this wolf, what they think at first, standing on the hill. And the reason why this story sticks out so much is just the description of this wolf apparently starts trotting down casually, but super fast in a sense, because its legs, they're super buff, they're super long. They look weird for it to be running on all fours. The coat was this dark brown with clumps of reddish orangish hair here and there. The legs were inverted like a dog's would be, but the legs were more spotted, almost like a cheetah or something. And this thing was running really fast, and then suddenly it stands up on its hind legs and starts running almost like somebody in a track and field meet would be running. And then the description they give after this is they can see the eyes. It's a deep amber color. The teeth, they're pearly white with these little black and red specks on them, probably from what it was last eating. And then they go on to describe how when this thing growled, it lifted up it's almost like how a Rottweiler will lift up its cheeks to bare its teeth. It's how this thing did it. But they mentioned that these teeth, they were demonic looking teeth almost. If you've ever seen a goblin shark, that's the easiest thing I can describe it. How their teeth are
Reggaeton, the beat that has taken over the world. But honey, not a lot of people know how it started. I'm Ivy Queen, and I'm here to tell you a story. The real story behind reggaeton, none of that fake shit. It's a story of how we got loud. From Spotify Studios and Futuro Studios. Loud, the history of reggaeton. Listen for free, exclusively on Spotify.
Raising Cane's is celebrating 25 years. That means 25 years of serving over 2.5 billion cook-to-order chicken finger meals. And 25 years of saying drive-thru rhymes. Lots and lots of times. Oh, and 25 years of the same mascot. Okay, different mascots with the same name. And 25 years of serving our communities. Thanks for making us your chicken fix since way back in '96. Raising Cane's, 25 years, one love.
Jagged, but they are just messed up. It looks like they got punched in the mouth, and now every tooth is going every which direction. So that story is probably one of my favorite Dogman one. Not because like they saw nothing intense happen in the story, but just because like they had so many details down to the T. Like they got such a good look at this thing that like it's just mind blowing to me that like we haven't gotten more good stories with good descriptions. But I do attest that too. Most people just being terrified, like you mentioned earlier. Like if you're so scared, the last thing in my mind is going to be like, okay, let me get every detail of this massive werewolf thing that's running full sprint down the hill at me.
And the one interesting part about this creature, Rob, is that at first we were only hearing about it in the central United States, Wisconsin with the Beast of Bray Road, into Michigan, maybe into Indiana, and a little bit into Illinois. But over the last 2 years, we've really seen reports of this creature coming from all over the place, from British Columbia right down to Florida.
Yeah, and it's insane that almost, like, unlike Bigfoot, almost all of these dogmen, I've heard, like, some shows have, like, their types, they'll call them, you know, and, like, the different descriptions, but almost all of them basically resemble the same thing. Most of them are about the same height, most of them are about the same width, most of them have about the same color fur, you know, claws, big teeth, amber eyes. It's too cool, it's too exact to be coincidental.
Why do you think that is?
Man, honestly, that's a long conversation. I feel like there's so many different arguments for what that could be. But I think ultimately it just leads that there's something more out there. Maybe it's not necessarily a bipedal werewolf, but there's definitely something that people are seeing. Now, I'm not ever going to be somebody who can fully put their stock behind something unless I have, like, you know, foolproof evidence that I can't be denied on. But I mean, there's just plenty of theories. I mean, it could be manifestations of things that ETs are doing, or interdimensional beings are using to present themselves in a more familiar fashion. Maybe it could be tulpas. It could just simply be a dogman, or it could just be mass hysteria, or just people making things up.
Out of all the stories that you have heard over the years with Swamp Dweller on YouTube, do you believe that all of this phenomena in one way or another could be tied together?
Honestly, yeah. I did a interesting study a while back on something called CERN. And when I learned about CERN and what they're doing over there, and with all the portals and weird interdimensional stuff they're doing over there, it really just seems like it all connects in some weird way. Maybe some timeline, some sort of parallels. It all seems to come together at the end of the day. Like whether it's paranormal, supernatural, interdimensional, extraterrestrial, it all ultimately kind of feels like it all runs together in some way or meets together at some point.
And I'm the same way. I believe exactly what you're saying. But have you ever thought about where that point of conjunction is? Honestly,
I have, but I just, you know, it's hard to put into words, you know. I feel like, is the afterlife, or what would be considered the afterlife, is that point, or is there a spot, or are there like these national parks? They have like these hotbeds of energy, and this is something that science acknowledges as well. There is places in the earth that give off this electromagnetic energy. There are high amounts of energy where people are having these crazy UFO, alien, cryptid, paranormal encounters. Are these those areas where these things are intersecting? Maybe. Or is it more spiritual? Is it more like anybody can connect with these types of things if they're open to it? And I don't know. I just feel like it's such a hard thing to know, and there's so much to expand, and that's what makes it so interesting to me at the end of the day, is that ultimately I could probably put 60 years, 70 years into looking into this and still know nothing more by the time I get put 6 feet down.
Well, you know what? The interesting part about it is I always think to myself, and I don't say this too often, but I think to myself, this is where Disney has it right with Monsters, Inc. by using the closets as portals. these animals or these creatures, they just seem to be able to have these portals all over the place where they could go in and out, jump in and out of reality. I just think it's very strange. I really do think it's extremely strange that they are able to do this. We have Swamp Dweller on Spaced Out Radio tonight, and he has a great YouTube channel called Swamp Dweller. I highly suggest you hit that subscribe button. I have a question coming from Magnus here for you, my friend, and he is asking, have you ever heard of the Morbach monster?
Yes, it's a German werewolf story. The Morbach or Morbach monster. It's also known as something. What's the word? Monster von Morbach, something like that is what they call it over there. It's basically, it goes all the way back to like Napoleon's army and such, and a bunch of deserters and basically people who were running away, trying to dip out of the war and all that. And basically, there was like a small town where the soldiers tries to hide out there, and they're attacked by some creature, and it kills like this farmer or the farmer's wife, something like that. And basically, before this creature kills the soldier or whatever is happening, I'm not exactly sure on all the details. It's been a long time since I've read this. They look up, and in the full moon, they see this monster with these blood red eyes and these big claws, and it like gives off this evil, vicious energy, and then attacks the people at its leisure, basically, and just messes up and destroys this entire village, and they have to basically abandon it and all that. And you could even fast forward to like more recent times. I think in like the 80s, there was like a group of I think it was like a U.S. military base or Air Force base, something like that in Germany. And apparently on a full moon, there was a sighting by multiple people on the base where they swear they saw something that resembled a werewolf. And people were thinking that was the return of the Morbach monster.
Out of all the thousands of stories that you have heard and read over the years, now that you can look at it from an outsider's perspective, what's the biggest piece of advice that you could give people who all of a sudden encounter some of these strange creatures?
I would say, first and foremost, write it out or talk it out, like listen to it. That's something that helps me out a lot when I see something so traumatic and confusing and out of this world. And second, just don't rely on being accepted by other people who are going to call you crazy or anything like that, because at the end of the day, your experience is unique to yourself, and you can't let yourself get down if other people don't have this unique experience. I would say just embrace it and try to learn more about it. Don't let it be something that scares you. At first I had a lot of bad anxiety. I was having sleep paralysis a lot when I first saw this dogman thing, creature thing in the road. For whatever reason, I'd wake up in the middle of the night and I would just be freaking out, and I would just see these red eyes again in the corner of my room, and I would be paralyzed, and it would just freak me out really bad. You can't let these things scare you. Like, these things, at the end of the day, if it's going to get you, it's going to get you. If it was meant to be, it was meant to be. And you were lucky enough that it didn't. So clearly you're meant to be here for something greater than that. So I would just try to see it as a blessing and something that you were able to experience, and see something that not many others probably will be able to.
What is the best way for people to report their stories to you if they want to turn them in and have you read it on your channel, Swamp Dweller?
You can go to swampdweller.net. It's the easiest way. It's basically all one page right there. You can submit it right there. You can send it in at swampdwellerreads@gmail.com. Instagram, Facebook, Gmail, Twitter, pretty much any social media. I'm there. Just search Swamp Dweller. Whatever's the easiest way for you to send it in, but swampdweller.net is pretty much the easiest way.
How many stories do you get a day?
Anywhere, it kind of fluctuates, but you're generally between probably like 75 to like 125 a day.
A day? How do you have time to read all of that?
Quite frankly, I just don't. I don't really get to read a lot of them until I go through the keywords. Obviously a lot of topics I do, so like I don't get to see a lot of stories until the keywords I search through them. But sometimes I'll go through and just read some. But as I was mentioning to you off air, I still have stories from back in 2017 I still haven't been able to read because so many come in. So it's just it's probably just impossible for me to be able to read them all, just to be quite honest.
My goodness, you would literally need a team of at least 20 people to get through all of those emails and to get them on air if you were to do each and every one.
Oh, yeah. It would probably be kind of miserable for the listener, too, because a big part of the show is quality control. So if I just read every single thing, people would probably be banging their heads against the wall because there's a lot of really bad stories that get sent in.
So when somebody submits a story to you, what do you want in there? Because it's easy for someone to say, yeah, man, I had this dogman encounter. It was in the forests of the Appalachians, and it charged us. We ran home and knocked on our windows a couple of times, and then after a couple hours, daylight came up, and we felt safe, never saw it again. I'm sure you get like real short stories like that. You're like, oh, I can't work with this. Give me some juice. You know what I'm saying? You need the juice. So what do you expect from the people who submit stories to you?
I'd say my quality expectations are like standard, but like a little lenient. Like I don't expect people to be authors, and I'm going to go through and fix the grammar and punctuation and spelling and all of that myself. But the thing that first and foremost that I'm going to look for is just like length of the story and like the details that you're giving. Like if you're giving me a bunch of details that don't actually really pertain to the story and it's just kind of to buff it out and make it longer, that's more of like probably going to be avoided more than somebody who's giving me relevant details. It might not be the longest story, it might not be the most enthralling story, but if you give me like clear, concise details, locations, stuff like that, things that like I can reference back to and can somewhat corroborate and feel a little bit better about putting that allegedly true title on is going to help me as well. And I guess the biggest thing is just the plot. Like, is there something happening in your story? Like if I wanted to read I saw Skinwalker, got scared, and ran away, I could just do that, all day, every day, but nobody really wants to hear that. People want to hear a story. So is there an actual story to what you're submitting? Not to discourage anybody, but if your encounter doesn't actually have a story to it, or you're not giving me any backstory to what happened to you before the encounter or after the encounter, it's not really a story that's worth sharing. Because everybody has been like, oh, I saw something scary and ran away.
Yeah, no kidding. You need the meat and potatoes. So if you're writing a story, bring the meat and potatoes, because that's really what it comes down to. And details at its finest. Don't just say it's a blue sky day. We want to hear about those clouds in the distance as well.
Oh yeah, definitely. I wanna know what you ate that morning. Now, it doesn't have to be that crazy, but definitely just be concise and clear about what happened, and don't be scared to put in details that might not seem important, because a lot of the time, like the smallest of details actually make the story make more sense.
Absolutely. Rob Antilla from Swamp Dweller, I got to tell you, man, I was actually quite nervous coming into this interview with you tonight, because I respect your work, and I know you didn't really know us from Adam here before we sent you the invite to come on, but I'm a big fan of yours. I hope our audience is as well, and all comes over to support your channel, Swamp Dweller, on YouTube. I think you are one of the best out there, and I don't say those words lightly, but please continue the great work.
Thank you so much for the kind words, and I definitely plan on it.
Awesome. We appreciate you, Rob. Rob Antilla from Swamp Dweller on YouTube. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Coming up next, John Hudson has the UFO report. We have Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire and the thought of the day. Stay tuned. Rob, incredible show. Honestly, incredible show. Thank you so much, man.
No, thank you for having me. It was a great time. It was an honor, and I was happy to be on here. It's something It's a little bit different for me. I don't normally do these kind of things, but this was a lot of fun.
Well, I hope we did you some justice, man, because we got a lot of respect for you around here, and watching what you do and now getting to know you a little bit, it totally met every expectation that I had on the type of person you are, and I really appreciate you, man, in giving us an opportunity and making things happen to do this for our audience and some of your audience who's listened to us for the first time. And feel free to share this show if you want. No problem with that. If you want to put it on your website or on social media or whatever, it'll be in the archives in about an hour and a half.
Sounds great. Yeah, I'll definitely share it around and let the swamp dwellers over there know that there's a great interview over here, and I'm sure a lot of them will be excited. I definitely saw quite a few comments over the past few days when you were announcing that this was happening. People excited about it, so
right on.
Definitely hope this was good for them and for everybody who listened, and hopefully I wasn't too, scatterbrained. I'm not the best at trying to explain all these folklores. There's a ton of details to try to remember and get straight all the time.
Well, I appreciate that, man, and thank you for the follow on Twitter, the follow back, I should say. We really appreciate that in helping us grow by another one, and thank you for allowing us to add you to our list of channels that we support on YouTube. And congratulations with your channel and all the success you've had. I got to run and get my news guy in here, and I know it's real late for you, but thank you so much for taking the time for our audience. I really appreciate that.
No, thank you so much, and just hit me up anytime whenever you want to talk.
Yeah, appreciate you, man. Take care.
You too.
Good night. That was friggin' awesome. That was friggin' awesome. John, I don't know why I was nervous going into this with him. I think it's because I listened to him every night, and damn.
Well, especially with his voice and his presentation.
Yeah.
He does provide a distance between himself and the story he tells, and so he kind of comes off as this kind of unknown, distant figure, and you really don't know what to expect when you meet a guy like that.
Oh, everything that I hoped it was going to be tonight. Some great stories and some good insight, solid insight. You could tell he's just a pro. He's just a pro.
And that story he shared of his own about that creature that leered over his car. Oh my God! if you've never seen anything like that, right? It's really hard. It's really hard to believe it's real. But if it is, whoa! Can you imagine the heart rate you would hit? I can't even fathom.
Yeah,
I can't even fathom. I can't. It's too crazy.
Yeah, I'm telling you, it's. What an incredible guy! You could tell in his voice, very humble, and
very humble,
very, very honest guy. I love the fact that he's not trying to promote an agenda of what these creatures are or what it's all about. He's like, I don't know what it is. I just put the stories out there. People can decide for themselves, and I like that because he's not trying to wrongly influence his listeners on what this phenomena is. He's got a simple focus of just bringing the stories to people, and that is nice and easy. There's nothing difficult about it. The programming and the editing and the the sound effects and everything, that's difficult. In putting each of those pieces together, but he's perfected it. How cool is that?
Honestly, a lot of UFO people could learn from him because a lot of people in the UFO community take the research they do and then they present it in a way that conforms to their belief system. And some of them don't even realize they're doing it. And he just presents it raw without any of his own biases. And man, I wish more people did that because we'd all get more out of the content.
Fully agree with you. Hey, Walter Bosley, how you doing? How you doing, buddy? Good to have you here. Walter Bosley, a guest earlier this week. We love him around here. Love him around here.
Very cool guest.
Very cool guy. Fantastic beard. Great solid beard. It's an investigative beard. Old school journalism right there. Hope you got some cool stuff for us tonight. Hint, hint.
Oh, it's been an interesting week.
Right? right? That's good. A big thank you to Ozzy Steve, Magnus, Christopher, Andrew, Jennifer, Apollo, Cat Chaser, Dirty Filth, Tawaz, and Joshua for the awesome super chats tonight. We're going to get going with the final half hour right now. We've rounded third. We're heading for home tonight on Spaced Out Radio. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to us. We really do appreciate earning your listening ears. Want to remind you that if you missed most of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. Let's talk some UFOs tonight as John Hudson is back. Yes, every couple of nights we bring in our intrepid UFO reporter, Stetson John Hudson, with the unbiased UFO report, where he gets to the heart of what's happening in the UFO community and around the world for this fascinating subject. And John, thank you so much for coming on in again, bud. It's always appreciated that you tune us and help us out and keep us up to date.
Well, thank you for having me. It's good to be here. It's been quite an interesting week, so we got some fun stuff to talk about.
All right. There's a big story, clarification in the power of UFO Twitter, which is an anomaly.
Anyone can be ready for back to school. But with Staples Connect, you can be more than ready. Like, I got everything from my classroom and saved a ton ready. We've got more backpacks, more pens, and more supplies than you ever thought possible. So double knot your shoes, gas up the minivan, and smear war paint on your face. Staples has everything you need and more for the new school year. Let's do this. Just visit your nearest Staples store or go to staplesconnect.com for inspiration.
Expand your influence with the perfect music to play on any social video. With Premium Beat, you get tracks produced by award-winning musicians working in world-class studios, so all your videos sound professional. Best of all, unlike other music providers, our license gives you tracks for a lifetime. Pay once and never again. Save 25% on your next track. Just visit premiumbeat.com/royalty-free/podcast to redeem your coupon. That's premiumbeat.com/royalty-free/podcast.
Only a monster and a nightmare on its own sometimes, but this leads to a couple of former guests here on Spaced Out Radio, and one of the gentlemen who experienced the USS Nimitz encounter, Gary Voorhees, and investigative journalist Ross Coulthard. What's going on here?
So this was, to me, and maybe I hope everyone else finds this as interesting as I did, because to me it was just, this was really cool on different levels. Because it started out, I was reading Ross's book, and on chapter 11, he's going into details about the Nimitz case, and he pulls in some other stuff that other people had, and it's a really good book. And at one point, he mentions that it was from Gary Voorhees that he heard that there was a submerged object that was traveling 500 miles per hour underneath the water. And, this caught my attention for two reasons. One, because I had originally heard it was fast, but I didn't hear it was that fast. And two, I had this vague memory that Gary Voorhees had actually recanted that story. And I knew Ross was a very careful reporter. So, I started wondering, did it go to print too fast? Did Ross not hear about this? Am I getting mixed up? Am I just not remembering this correctly? And in a lot of cases, what do you do when this happens? You're reading some author's book. Maybe you can send him an email and he might respond, right? She might answer you. But, nowadays we have things like UFO Twitter. So I got on Twitter and I basically posted a message to Gary. I copied Ross on it because, obviously if he printed something incorrect, he's going to want to, correct it. And I basically asked Gary, I said, hey, Gary, this is in the book about, it's quoted by you. I thought you recanted this story because there was a problem with your source. Am I getting mixed up or did something go wrong here, right? And it was, Gary's, I've said, been on the show. He's a great guy. Gary's one of the more down to earth, easy to talk to folks from that whole event. We love Gary, and he comes right back and he says, yes, it was secondhand information that was told to me at the time of the event, and it was essentially used out of context in an unidentified episode. But the main problem was that when I tried to identify it, the person who told it to me went dark. So, you first hear that and you're like, oh, okay, well, that's a bummer, right? But then he follows up and he says, I have, however, been able to verify that all the sonar techs that were involved, implying that it was a sonar tech that he was hearing this from either directly or indirectly, that all the sonar techs are now and forever under NDA. And they did indeed have a passive track.
Wow.
No clue of speed. So what this means is that what he heard was likely accurate. It's just that the person who told it to him either afterwards realized he shouldn't have, or somehow got into a little bit of trouble for it. So now they're all locked down by NDAs. And so now, you see why Ross went ahead and printed it, because there is still a strong possibility that it's true. My misconception is taken care of, and Gary stepped in to bring the clarity to all of us, and Ross gets to read it if he wants to. And this all happened within,
right,
like an hour of me posting it or something.
Well,
so
the interesting part for me on this is that all of these sonar techs are now locked down for the end of their lives. What the hell are they seeing that the United States Navy and the U.S. government feels that these people can no longer speak about? I mean, that is scary.
And so this is actually this was a side conversation that broke out as a result of this, because a couple people posted a question, said, for life, and I myself was curious, because in my line of work, I've probably signed 200 NDAs in my life, maybe more, right? Pretty much every meeting I've ever had, I've had to sign an NDA for, but they're all like limited. They're like 2 years, 3 years, maybe 5 years, right? And so, and I got this confirmed by several people, including our own Science Bob, that essentially military NDAs have two criteria. You're either locked down until the information that you're aware of is declassified by some other party within the government, or until you die, in which case you're welcome to report it through a medium or whatever belief system you have. And so they don't do time-based NDAs. All their NDAs are based on either declassification or end of life. And so this is just their standard NDA. So what that means is it doesn't really matter, as long as it's serious enough to lock it down until it's declassified. It's serious enough to lock it in for their perceivable life. But yes, it does speak volumes.
That is unbelievable. Unbelievable. And once again, it leads to the fact, before we move on to the next story, that it just throws another wrench in this entire phenomena on what they are seeing and what they don't want to go out to the public. It's one thing to get F-18s to film little Tic Tacs, but any type of scenario from the movie The Abyss going through the oceans, we're not allowed to see that. Nothing to see here, people. Nothing to see here.
Exactly. But I'd also like to just point out that, as all of you are reading books, you're watching, YouTube presentations, you're listening to podcasts, if you hear something and the data doesn't match, don't just give up. Don't get frustrated. Get onto Twitter, post the question. You'll be amazed how fast the people on Twitter will help you get down to that answer. In a lot of cases, it's the principals that respond.
That's amazing. Let's move on to topic number 2 tonight, because after being silent for almost a year and a half, Tom DeLonge of Angels and Airwaves, formerly of Blink-182, and of course of the head of the To the Stars Academy of Arts and Science, finally broke his silence on doing a podcast with, I'm going to call it another fanboy. And that's not an insult to the host of the show or anything like that. But once again, Tom comes out and wants to talk and play UFOs again. And by my wording, I'm sure you could tell that I'm not a big fan. Love his music. Think he's very talented, and everything. I got it downloaded. but in the end, not a good ufologist. Not a good ufologist. So what's going on here with Mr. DeLong?
So I mean, I will differ with you a little bit there in that I don't really, to me, Tom is in many ways no different than so many of the other podcasters that everyone's listening to right now, right? Everyone comes into this with some kind of an experience and some kind of passion for it, and a lot of people don't have science or journalism background. So in many ways, he is representative of a large portion of this community, good or bad. But what this really was, and it's funny because I listened to it again right before I came on because I wanted to kind of really kind of dive into some of it. And this really was a debutante ball. This really was a coming out party. This really was a reintroduction of To the Stars and a reintroduction of Tom DeLonge and a reintroduction. Well, you don't really need the reintroduction of Jim Simivan, but and the thing that was unfortunate was that Dr. Brian, Dr. Brian Keating. I mean, this guy. I mean, he's a sharp cat, right? I mean, he's a chancellor's professor of physics for UC San Diego, right? So he's like the top, one of the top physics guys at UC San Diego. He also recently became a member of the Galileo Project, right? He's a very articulate, very bright individual, and it was really him hosting it. And so I was hoping for some pretty direct questions. He was the one that clearly had a lot of admiration for the both of them and played it pretty clean. And then we had the return of Kurt Jamondel, and once again, Kurt, I'm annihilating your last name. I apologize. For the host of The Theory of Everything, and Kurt was able to ask some more direct questions, but unfortunately, he was just coming off the Travis Wilton interview where his direct questioning kind of put Travis in a defensive state. So Kurt was playing it a little safer this time because I think he was, didn't want to do the same thing again, and so he asked some pretty, open-ended questions. Like his first question was just, "What the hell's going on with Skinwalker? Like, I don't get it. Like, how does Skinwalker relate to any of this?" And it was kind of interesting because listening to it a second time, there was some interesting information that came out of it. But ultimately, if you look at the description of the podcast. In the description of the podcast, they include a detailed description of both Vault and Scout, which are their two projects. Scout being the reporting tool, and Vault being the proprietary, what they call AI collaboration tool that basically mines several global databases. Keep in mind when you see AI in these contexts, read ML. It's machine learning. It's not AI. And then it describes the entertainment division. So the description of the podcast really comes off as a new prospectus, as a new summary of what To the Stars is. And then and Tom was a reformed Tom. He was a quieter Tom. He was a nicer Tom. He was an oh so friendly Tom. To the point where he said things like, which I never thought I'd hear come out of his mouth, was, I have no science to back that up. And he said, yes, I've heard that, but it's not my place to go into detail. So Tom's been trained better. Tom is being, and I'm not saying he's being, overly so. He's basically behaving the way he should have been behaving in the first place. If this is a Tom we've been seeing this whole time, a lot of things would have gone different for Tom, and quite possibly for To the Stars.
See, I'm going to cut you off. I'm going to cut you off right there. Please, and I'll tell you, because just a couple of days ago. All right. Tom put a big bunch of clippings about UFOs together to post on Instagram and Twitter. And one of the scenes that he put in there was on Joe Rogan, where he said, "Do you want me to whip out my bleep?"
Oh, right.
And then he comes into this interview sounding all humble and wholesome and professional. I don't get it from him. I don't understand the purpose. And
we'll see if it sticks.
I totally get that. And trust me, I wanted Tom DeLonge to succeed. I did. I've always been and maybe it's because I'm a fan of the band and whether or not people like his music with Blink-182 or not, that's everyone else's opinion. I mean, the only way that people are going to be wrong in music is if they insult Guns N' Roses. That's the only way that anybody will be wrong in music. But the point that I'm getting at is this. Since the beginning, that to give people reminders, the TTSA, in my opinion, has been a cluster of fumbles and bumbles while putting out some great information at the same time. And the unfortunate...
But you had to dig for it.
You didn't. I don't think you did have to dig for it. I think it was...
Well, you had to dig for the good stuff. You had a lot of other stuff that got in the way.
What really set my red flags off, and you can go back and listen to this show, going back 4 years ago now, hard to believe almost, all right, when they held a pressless press conference to announce the To the Stars Academy. It was in Seattle. Guess what? Dave's in British Columbia. Old Davey would have driven down to Seattle to catch that press conference. Every journalist, UFO journalist, if there is no such thing in that term, you just use a term that
at least MTV would have showed up. I mean, come on. I mean, some reporters would have come if they had invited press to the press conference.
Right. No, I get you. I get you. I just have a distrust with Mr. DeLong. And you know what? I'm going to put a quick challenge out to you here because we do got to get going here in about a minute here. But I want you to stick around. If you're still awake,
yeah, please.
I know you're a night owl.
Totally. Yeah.
And what we'll do is when we end the radio show, let's do a little bit of an after show on this topic.
Sure.
Right afterwards on our YouTube channel.
Yeah.
While I'm editing the show. So let's do that, and let's fire this up because I'm telling you, I'm fired up tonight.
No, totally, and we should do it. But you know what? If we're going to do that, let me just say one thing really quick.
Sure.
People should listen to it because, as Tom always does, he uses language that conveys things that he might not have intended to be sharing. So he uses language like cuts between cells with no vascular collapse when talking about cattle mutilations. He talks about materials that materialize, that displace time the way a submarine displaces water. He comes up with some interesting descriptions of things, including a cow that he claims had its heart removed without any incisions to the body. And so in Tom's normal style, as he's talking, he uses the language that he heard it with. And because it's not his native language, it conveys more than he perhaps intends about where this information is coming from. So it's worth listening to.
Yeah, and you know what? Let's get into it a little bit. And you know what? Hey, I'm pretty sure that Joe Merja is going to go nuts on me after this, because he always does. And, I'll just have to tell him that, his Brillo pad hairdo, if he doesn't watch it, I'll stick him against a wall because it's like Velcro. So we'll get into it. I love Joe. I do. I just love insulting him because he does it to me, so I'm going to do it back to him. And finally, I'm going to fire that first shot. Fire that first salvo over his Brillo pad. All right, let's get to the news right now. The news is always changing, which is why we bring you the SOR Newswire at the back end of every show where we get to the weird, the strange, the wacky, and sometimes the proper, the smart, the intelligent. Yes, it's Left-Handed People Day, and old Davey's giving a fist pump because on International Left-Handers Day, here is what we do know about left-handed people, a.k.a. people like me. That we make up 10% of the world's population, and scientists being that left-handed is influenced by genetics, environment, and random chance. With a long list of famous left-handed people like Leonardo da Vinci, Isaac Newton, Dave Scott, Benjamin Franklin, and Ronald Reagan. See, I just threw my name in there. It's one of those cool things that we got to talk about. And, researchers at the University of Athens found a negligible difference between the intelligence of left-handed and right-handed people in a 2017 study and meta-analysis. For their findings, researchers analyzed 36 studies that measured the IQ scores of more than 66,108 individuals. The meta-analyses found that right-handed people had slightly higher IQs, but when the largest study was excluded, the researchers found no difference between the two groups. We're just as smart as them righties, even though it's a right-handed world. Meanwhile, as far as creativity goes, they found that left-handed people think they are more creative, but they didn't spend significantly more time on artistic pursuits than right-handed people. That survey questioned more than 20,000 participants. That was done by the Fast Company, who did that survey. So, is there a difference between righties and lefties? The answer is yes, because there's so few of us lefties. But in a right-handed world, us lefties, we got it right. We did. Pink dolphins, piranhas, and black caiman. It sounds like the stuff of legend, or Dave's nightmare, except the pink dolphins. But in fact, it's the inhabitants of a protected wetland system in the Amazon, home to thousands of rare animal species, fascinating tales of tribal gods turning men into dolphins. Storytelling is part of the culture of the indigenous groups who live along the Amazon rainforest, and the wetlands play an important part in the yarns that have been spun for centuries. But the waters of the Lagos de Tarapato aren't just home to tall tales. They are such inhabitants, they are important habitat for animal species that were granted protected status in 2018, following a 5-year battle to petition for the wetlands region to be internationally recognized. Scientists have been conducting research into the wetlands, which included Lake Tarapato and other areas as well. So these creatures, they're going to be safe. Just be careful, because piranha like to eat things, especially if it goes splash. And caimans, well, they like to eat people too. Let's just be honest. There's going to be a lot of eating going on. Don't go for a swim. Not going to be good. Thought of the Day happens every night at this time, where we ask a question on our Facebook and Twitter pages. Then we read your responses on the air, because we love the audience participation around here. Today's Thought of the Day is as follows. What creepypasta stories really freak you out? Danny, none of them. I actually find them quite relaxing, probably because of the narrator, Swamp Dweller. Magnus, the Stairs of the Forest ones are weird, and the SNR ones. Ted, Russian sleep experiment. Tim, well, Mystic 411 is covered, so for sheer terror, Dogman, both good reasons not to go in the woods. Terror Bigfoot doesn't worry me so much anymore. Dogman, it is. Peter, Creepypasta Moon, landing story, totally freaky. I think about that story all the time. Thank you to everybody listening to the news. Thank you to John Hudson for the UFO report, and Rob Antia from Swamp Dweller. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal rocking in the background with Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at home, at work, in your cars, whatever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat rooms tonight on YouTube, LGAB, Revolution Radio, Spreaker, Facebook, the Space Travelers Club, and on Twitch and Twitter at hashtag Spaced Out Radio. Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends, say it with me, we're watching. We own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo Train has docked for the night, but soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, we've got room for them too. Good night.
As one of the South's largest mortgage lenders, a home loan from Trustmark fits you to a T. Trustmark. People you trust. Advice that works. Member FDIC. Equal housing lender.
Every editor knows the perfect video needs the perfect music to make it really pop. Find it easily on Premium Beat, where you'll hear world-class music produced by award-winning musicians. Best of all, unlike other music providers, our license gives you tracks for a lifetime. Pay once and never again. Save 25% on your next track. Just visit premiumbeat.com/royalty-free/podcast to redeem your coupon. That's premiumbeat.com/royalty-free/podcast.